Dear viewers, thank you for choosing Manhwa Compilation Channel. Enjoy watching. Among all things, only man has a soul hidden in their bodies, where he grows and takes shape. There are countless of these forms, and it is different for everyone. Those who have the greatest among them follow the path of practice and become masters of spiritual forms. Although their bodies are mortal, their spirit is not. And if the spirit does not calm down, its form goes into a frenzy, and, just as a dove occupies the magpie's nest, so the rebel spirit occupies the corpse. 15 years ago, a similar spirit arose in the city of Lofeng, after which a black fog enveloped the city, and people were afraid to sleep. Then the city was filled with corpses, and out of 200,000 inhabitants, not one survived. After that day, throughout the vast land, more and more often spirits raised corpses. Almost every corpse rose from the dead, instilling fear in those still alive. So the city spiritual administration of each city gathered the best masters from all over the face of the earth, distributing them into 6 departments: heavenly, secret, starry, talismanic, spiritual, and corpse. Each of the departments did their job, destroyed evil spirits, exterminated demons, calmed souls, and protected the people. The lowest department, performing the dirtiest work and yet quite an important department, was the corpse department, which was responsible for returning coffins home and reassuring the deceased. Why did few people want to work in this department? The whole point is that the undertakers and their guards, going after the corpse, leave the lands of the living and the city walls. It was as if we had one foot in the world of the living and the other in the dead. Sometimes even good physical endurance, various talismans and strong weapons could not save from an unfortunate fate. 3 men walked from the city of Nianling to the city of Li under cover of darkness. 2 of them walked in front, illuminating the path with the light of the lamp of the dead, which supposedly scared away evil spirits. Slightly lagging behind them, a slightly younger young man followed them. On his not yet fully strengthened shoulders, he carried a huge, heavy oak coffin, which was covered on all sides with pieces of paper with various spells and drawings. It was specifically to avoid an uprising of the spirit that the coffin was sealed with talismans. The undertaker himself was named Ding Xiao, and the men in front of him were Mu Pioxin and Zhang Xuan. Unlike the young man, their clothes fit them and were not so patched. All 3 were servants of the corpse department. "Senior, everything will go fine? I heard that the woman inside was kidnapped into slavery immediately after giving birth, and her husband went to save her and was killed. Why would the pipe department bring her body back home?" Pia Oxine thought out loud, taking out his watch from his pocket and concentrating spiritual energy in his index finger, illuminating the dial. And in a concerned tone he said that they should increase the check, since they need to get to the city before midnight, otherwise the spirit might rebel. "I agree with you. But if it weren't for that garbage carrying the coffin, we would have been in place long ago." Xuan answered him, nodding towards the porter. "Seniors, I have a burden on me. I can't keep up with you," Xiao begged, sweating and barely moving his legs. "You know, you can even admire this guy, because he carries the coffin 50 kilometers the whole way," Pia Oxine noted, pausing. "Stubborn? Useless scum and shameless to be in the spiritual department." Xuan objected to him. "That's also true. He's been hopelessly carrying coffins for 8 years now. He must have coveted spiritual dust, which he produces through spiritual management and sells it somewhere at a good price," suggested Pia Oxine. While discussing the young man, they did not even bother to lower their tone, and laughed loudly at Xiao, saying that even spiritual dust would not help a scum like him, unable to form a spiritual form. But the undertaker did not listen to them. He knew that form is born from the heart, shaped by the spirit, and then united with man. This is how spiritual masters appear, and becoming one of them was his main goal in life. Looking ahead, the young man made sure that the road had no curves, and mentally transported himself to his spiritual palace of contemplation. In 8 years, this was his 2,448th attempt. How many times has he visited? The more times he found himself in his spiritual space, the more he realized his liberation of the spiritual form. Often people grow spiritually through burning meditations, but he could have used both options. The spiritual space into which Ding Xiao was transported was endless. Only the horizon was blurred due to darkness. In the center of the world, there was a huge purple egg, but it was not fragile. The young man came up to him and stroked him affectionately. "My friend, you and I have been together for almost 8 years, and I still don't know what rank your spiritual form is. Perhaps all my efforts will be in vain. But I promise that I will not give up, the young man swore, and he pulled out a small vessel from his bosom. My friend, this is definitely our last meeting with you in this image. I'm sure that after 8 years you finally woke up, continued to chat, pouring out the contents of the vessel with spiritual dust. Suddenly a crack was heard. The shell on the egg slowly began to crack. The Undertaker's heart began to beat faster. Waiting for a miracle, the cracks became larger and larger, and in some places the shell began to fall off. A few more moments, and a column of light fell on the egg from the upper hemisphere of the world. It was so bright that Xiao closed his eyes, and the wind that rose from God knows where knocked him down when everything calmed down. The young man opened his eyes past him from all sides. Hundreds of magical papers flew towards the egg, sealing the spiritual form. The spell of the technique that created this was called a golden talisman. From the powerless tears flowed from his eyes of bitterness. He didn't understand why. Every time he was so close to his goal, something interfered with him, and it was especially offensive this time. Choking for a while, he sobbed, after which he gradually began to calm down. Friend, listen, you are my spiritual form. I will never give up and you don't give up in your hearts, Dean shouted, and overdid it a little because he mixed up in which world he uttered his words. His heart-rending motivational cry made the elders seriously angry. Hey, Porter, why the hell are you making noise? Having collected as much air as possible into his lungs, he began to count out the Undertaker Pioxine. Having come to his senses, our hero found himself in an awkward situation and immediately began to apologize. Usually men would begin to mock him even more, but not this time. Xuan's hearing caught a strange sound, not inherent in the natural environment. What it is? Everyone freeze, he instantly commanded, throwing the lantern to the ground and grabbing the hilt of his sword with his hand. After a short period of time, the trio realized that their worst fears had come true. The sound was coming from the coffin that Xiao was carrying on his back. A range of emotions was reflected on the Undertaker's face. Detachment, uncertainty, and hope. And all because in his spiritual world there was one small crack left on the egg of the spiritual form, which turned out to be unsealed. But when I saw the elders opposite me with weapons in their hands, I couldn't. He didn't understand what was happening and didn't believe that so much time had passed, and it was past midnight. Ding Xiao, don't move, Xuan ordered, squeezing the handle of the saber tighter. And he had reasons for this. Now our hero heard a quiet scratching. The moon was shining at his back, and therefore in front he clearly saw his rectangular shadow cast from the coffin. And not only him. There was something sitting on top. The monster had 4 legs, huge claws and a mouth full of teeth. The eyes burned with hellish fire, and the entire sheepskin coat was sprinkled with already coagulated blood. This possessed blood spider was half the height of a man. Undeterred, Pioxine pulled out a protective talisman from his pocket and threw it at the monster. Feeling the pain, the creature lost its balance, and, in order not to fall with its paws, began to try to grab onto the coffin, thereby swinging it, and with it the Undertaker. Garbage! You can't even just stand still. Pioxine immediately began to be indignant, and since the rebel spirit was low-ranking, he asked Xuan for permission to eliminate him. He didn't mind. Pulling out the amulet again, Pioxine used the power of the talisman, redirecting it into the saber. Die! He shouted and swung his hand and slashed the air. The concentrated force in the weapon moved on by inertia, and she hit a spider. The shockwave was very strong and our hero could not stay on his feet. Garbage! You can't even hold a coffin! Pioxine was indignant, repeatedly plunging the saber into the monster up to the hilt. Blood sprayed like a fountain over the next couple of meters. Having finished with the monster, Mu stood up proudly, continuing to pick out the insides of the dead rebel spirit with the edge of a cold weapon. Why are you always afraid, Xiao? And I have to deal with it. He continued to mock while our hero tried to even out his breathing. Senior, don't worry. This spider was too weak. Even I couldn't have fun. Pioxine smiled, wiping the bloody blade on the hem of his clothes. But Xuan shook his head negatively, pointing behind him with his eyes. There, climbing over each other, a whole herd of spiders was heading towards them. Without wasting any time, both men decided to fight the monsters with the help of their spiritual forms. Every person has an aura, and depending on the person's abilities and his personality, it is painted in a certain color. Xuan's was blue, and Pioxine's was red. In an instant, the spiritual power of men acquired its physical forms. Pionson had it as a midnight wolf, and Xuan had an infernal fox. And without wasting time, they rushed to tear the monsters to pieces. They gnawed their throats and dismembered the bodies of spiders, but their numbers did not stop. After watching them, Xuan realized that the most likely goal of the monsters was a coffin with a dead woman. "They are too scattered. We need to bring them all together," Pyoksin commanded. And the first one transformed his spiritual power from a midnight wolf into a silver wolf, which was tens of times more powerful and stronger than the previous one. Only when they came into contact with the aura of the spiritual form, the spiders could not help themselves and burst like overripe watermelons. And when the monsters fell under the influence of the all-powerful red fox, they were burned alive. In the end, the men surrounded the monsters, and they found themselves in a closed ring. Then both spiritual forms came into contact with each other, after which an explosion occurred, finally destroying the last spiders. While the defenders fought tooth and nail, our hero, pressing his back to the coffin, admired the power of the spiritual form. "Will I ever be able to? And when do I own my form?" he thought sadly, watching the last sparks of the red fox fade away. Unfortunately, the misfortunes are not over for today. While no one was paying attention, the restless soul of the woman in the coffin was slowly returning to life. When the battle ended, all three watched silently as the last remains burned in the flames of the fire. "Porter, understand?" Xiao asked Xuan, looking arrogantly in the direction. The young man had no choice but to clasp his fists and bow his head in silent obedience. "That's right. For spirit masters, the form of the spirit is the basis. A trash like you who is unable to form a spirit will always be at the very bottom." Zhang mocked him while Xuan stood silently. Aside, he instantly fell silent, listening to the rustling and catching a sickening smell with his nose, but he did not have time to warn the others about the danger. Something stirred in the coffin, and wanting to get out, tore the sealed wooden box into pieces. Xiao was thrown a couple of meters away by the shockwave. Clearing his throat and wiping his face of small stones and dust, he opened his eyes, and a terrifying picture appeared before him. The restless soul of a woman who had recently given birth again inhabited her dead body, and now with her bony hand, which had already begun to decompose, she held Xuan by the throat, smiling disgustingly. The corpse was so strong that it was able to lift the man into the air, and he did not feel any support and waved his legs. And seeing that our hero and Mu Pangson were arriving in shock, he decided to save himself with the help of a spiritual form. But the dead man only squeezed his throat tighter, and he could not even breathe, let alone mutter a spell. Having enjoyed the bulging eyes of the victim, the dead woman finally let go of him, and the man's body fell to the ground. Having played with the corpse enough, I noticed Xiao sitting on the sidelines and saw in him my new victim. The night wind played with her flowing black hair, giving her an even more terrifying look. Driven by madness, the restless spirit rushed to our hero. But he was not at a loss, and used the speed talisman, and with the help of the power that appeared, he changed his location with lightning speed, finding himself on the opposite side of the dead woman. But feeling that she had been fooled, she screamed heart-rendingly. Even from her scream, it was clear that the risen spirit was too strong and therefore dangerous. "How dare you create unrest in the face of spiritual management?" Pyoksin was indignant, hastening to help the young man in the form of a spiritual form. Seeing the silver wolf, the restless spirit of the woman turned her attention to him, and with the edge of her hand she cut the wolf that was overtaking her into two parts. Pyoksin did not expect such a reaction. Where did such a strong spirit come from? Did something like that get on the corpse? It would have been possible to restrain it just with a four-sided seal, but without Xuan Wu I won't be able to do this alone. He went through the options in his head. "Ding Xiao, can you create a four-sided seal?" With hope in his voice he turned to our hero. But Xuan did not have time to listen to Xiao's answer, because the dead woman overtook him and hit him on the arm with all her might. "I saw your child, hoping that it will work," our hero shouted. The restless soul instantly stopped. "Child?" she asked again. "Yes, I saw him. He's so cute. He looks a lot like you." Dean continued to invent. When he was still studying, in the Book of Secrets of the Corpse Department, he read that even though animated corpses are possessed, the remnants of the consciousness of the spirit form are still present. The woman standing in front of him died in childbirth, and perhaps she really wanted to hear about her child. "My child! Where is my child?" the rebel screamed in a painful voice, grabbing her head with her hands and starting to tear her hair. While she was in madness, the defenders were not at a loss and began to carry out the sealing ceremony. From the air, from all sides, enchanted chains reached out to the dead woman, tying her arms and legs, but she did not notice them, but only continued to be tormented in agony, thinking about her child. The dust returns to the earth, and the soul ascends upward. Seal, Xuan said the last spell. My child, give me back my child. The dead woman moaned for the last time before falling silent forever. Phew, they finally sealed it. This spirit is not simple. I never thought you could build a four-sided seal, and that's what kept us alive. For the first time since we met, Xuan thanked our hero. Every day in my free time I practice typing on my own. Who would have thought that one day this would help the elder? The young man explained, barely able to stand on his feet. But before they both had time to catch their breath, something strange began to happen to the newly sealed corpse. Her belly began to grow so rapidly that soon the clothes on the woman's body began to crack, and with it, the recently applied protective chains. Xuan jumped aside in fear when he saw that the woman's body began to sprout paws. Huge fangs appeared in the chest area. She grew several meters tall, and she formed a second mouth with dozens of rows of teeth. Oh no! The man was horrified at the sight of the six-eyed bloody spider. Obeying instincts, the three of them rushed to run. Having slipped on a slope, our hero flew down head over heels, landing at the roots of a dried-up tree and lost consciousness. Senior? A second later he woke up and began to look for Comrade Xiao. However, the man's fate had already been sealed. Now he was hanging in the air like a limp doll, clasped by the spider's paws. Having responded to the call, Xuan barely had the strength to turn his head. Run! He whispered barely audibly with his lips, and his head disappeared into the belly of the monster. Then many times our hero replayed the events of that night in his head. Why did the corpse rise up? Maybe the blood of other monsters somehow got on her. The spider, smacking its lips with relish, devoured the man. Finally, only the legs were visible from the mouth and, helping with the tentacles, the monster stuck them into its mouth. Of the trio, only our hero remained alive. And after the spider finished with Zhang Xuan, she decided to take on him. The young man understood that he needed to do something urgently, to cling to life in every possible way. But he simply no longer had the strength. Something began to fall on Xiao from above. This monster came right up to him, and foul-smelling drool dripped from her sharp teeth. The young man did not resist even when the needle-sharp leg of a spider pierced his chest. Our hero did not feel pain, but only regretted his 8 years of hard work on his spiritual form. Before his eyes stood the image of his younger sister. Brother, I'm waiting for you to come home. Standing at the gate, a girl waved after him on the eve of last evening. Lin, I'm sorry. I couldn't keep my promise. He mentally asked for forgiveness. He didn't want to die. He had unfinished business. Suddenly, in the depths of consciousness, an echo of a voice was heard. Are you really ready to give up? After these words, the shadow side seemed to awaken in the young man. Should I give up? Am I ready to give up? He asked himself over and over again. Gradually, his body began to return to life, as if someone had given him living water to drink. I won't die here, Xiao said, licking the blood from his lips, and grabbing the tentacles that had pierced him with his hands. He began to pull him out of himself. His grip was so strong that it managed to hurt the spider. The monster pulled back and squealed, and all because the young man's hands were filled with unprecedented strength, as if suddenly the hands of a hero stood with the hands of a frail young man. Now the cat and mouse have changed places. Jumping up, Xiao grabbed the once beautiful female head by the hair and pulled it towards him. The feeling of fear and pain disappeared from him, and his eyes were filled with madness. The monster could not resist such an unexpected attack. Raising her as high as possible, as if in revenge for the hated but humane Mu Piaoxin, our hero threw her to the ground with all his strength. A crunch was heard. This spider, falling flat along with broken bones, went to the world of the dead. Satisfied with himself, Xiao looked at his work and then burst out laughing. It is quite possible that even the devil himself would have been horrified to hear his laughter. And also from the fact that the young man looked with interest at the insides of the monster. The aura of our hero and the monster in the invisible world of the biofield, resisting each other, resembled something like a huge explosion. And sensing something was wrong, they rushed to the place of battle to intervene. I sensed the aura of two strong spirits, the warrior girl thought, relying on her sixth sense. She had blue eyes, blonde hair, and a sweet face. Despite all this, her body was strong and well-built athletically. Having rested slightly and getting ready for a fight, the girl hastened to help. She guessed that most likely some master was attacked by a strong demon. At this time, at the other end of the country, in one large empty house, they still couldn't go to bed. The owner of the house was a magician, and for the last 15 years all he had been doing was casting amulets and talismans. Suddenly, the talisman that had just been enchanted caught fire. The old man did not begin to extinguish the fire, but only thoughtfully contemplated the flames. The sun's glare on the water, not the creature in the pond driven by the wind. The clouds suddenly changed the weather. He said barely audible. The very personality of our hero during his unexpected madness during the struggle for life seemed to fall into oblivion. "Master, wake up quickly, I ask you," someone asked in the echo of Xiao's consciousness. "What? Who's speaking?" Waking up in his spiritual world, he perked up. "Master, it's me," answered the spiritual form. "So you're talking to me? Really?" Our hero perked up. His joy knew no bounds. Finally, after 8 years, his efforts were not in vain. "Thank you, Master, for your care throughout this time. Although I am not fully formed now and my spiritual powers are not full, I can still temporarily enhance you as a master to a 5-star spirit realm," explained the spiritual form. The young man was amazed. If he is so strong immediately after waking up, then what will happen when he is fully formed? It turned out that the impending danger forced the spiritual form to awaken part of its power. But he could not cope with the expenditure of strength, and therefore was very tired. "Okay, my dear, rest," Xiao said, gently stroking his spiritual heart. "And then I woke up in the real world. I did this? Is my spiritual power really that strong and that fierce?" Our hero was surprised, already in his right mind, examining the remains of the spider monster. After wandering around, he found the nameplate of the head of the corpse department, Zhang Xuan. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that something was moving behind him, and was afraid that it was really some kind of monster again. However, he shouldn't have worried so much. The spirit of that very woman who died during childbirth was in the air before him. "Mister, don't be afraid. I'm Yun. Thank you." The soul thanked. "For what?" Dean was perplexed. "You freed me from an evil spirit. Have you really seen my child? He is okay?" The woman was worried. Her last dying wish, until her spirit dissipated, was to look at her child at least once. Our hero could not refuse the young mother's request, and, after rummaging in his pockets, he took out some piece of paper and unfolded it. "This is the talisman of the remnant. It can hold a part of your soul here so that you will fulfill your last wish. Although I have not seen your child, I promise you that if you go to Li Village, you will definitely find your child there," the young man explained. Gradually, the piece of paper turned into a translucent lotus flower, and the woman's spirit seemed to be sucked into it. "Don't thank me. The repose of the deceased is the responsibility of our corpse department," Xiao answered, wrapping the talisman before setting off. When the blue-eyed warrior girl arrived at the scene of the skirmish, there was already no trace of him. As she suspected, there was a massacre here. Squatting down, she began to examine the remains of things. From the piece of wood from the coffin, she learned that the people most likely were from the city spiritual administration, and while the blood was not yet cooled, I learned that the monster was a 6-eyed bloody spider. "But who could do this to him?" the girl exclaimed, realizing how strong the master who defeated the monster must be then. Our hero spent the rest of the night on the way to the city of Li. As soon as he passed through the city gates, sarcastic laughter was heard from everywhere. How pathetic is he? What does it even say on his sign? Does anyone understand? "Undertaker," some mocked. "Have you really met a demon? Then why is he still alive?" Others were perplexed. However, Xiu, accustomed to such treatment, did not pay any attention to them, and, having found the desired courtyard, knocked. "I am the undertaker who carried Miss Yun. Tell me, has the Minister of Peace of Souls arrived yet?" he asked the man who opened the door for him. "Not yet. You are the only one who came. Has Yun become possessed?" Don't pay attention to the young man's profession. The man took his hands and looked into his eyes, wanting to hear the truth. "Unfortunately, yes. So the services of a funeral minister are no longer needed. Later, I will meet him myself and tell him." "Uncle, do you know where Miss Yun's child is?" Xiao asked. "How can you not know, third daughter-in-law? Bring your child here soon," the man shouted into the yard. "My name is Kuji. I am Baron, and I am Yun's younger sister, and therefore my husband and I adopted a child," said a woman who approached with a bundle in her hands. Xiao took out the talisman and unfolded it. "Thank the gods my child is alive," exclaimed the woman, trying to hug the baby. "Miss Yun, the living and the dead should not touch, and the child is still weak. Your last wish has been fulfilled. Now you can leave our world. Our hero stopped her. Third sister, I ask you to take care of my son, Yun pleaded with tears in her eyes. Rest assured, I will always take care of him with all my might. Kuji promised. Sir, thank you. Yul finally thanked her as she left the world of living people. Under her last breath, a newborn boy woke up. For some time, all four stood silently, honoring the memory of the deceased. But then the baby began to cry. It's windy outside. It's better to take the child inside. Uncle, my status does not allow me to go inside, so could you please bring me some water? Asked Xiao. The man immediately left to fulfill his request, but when he went out to the gate with a filled cup of water, no one met him. Only on the threshold of the gate something sparkled. Coming closer, the man saw 2 silver pennies. Meanwhile, our hero was heading to the government highway outside the village. Before leaving the battlefield with the spider, he took the hip pouch of the late senior Jiang. In total, Xiao collected 36 talismans, 50 pairs of silver money, 150 grams of spiritual dust, and a priceless sword. The young man wanted to give the bag to Xuan's relatives, but unfortunately, he was lonely all his life. While going through the things of the deceased, our hero finally found something worthwhile. The spiritual pearl of Selin. The young man could not even think that the elder could have such a rare treasure. The reserve of spiritual strength and the time of using the skill can be increased many times, but the greatest power is gained through the concentration of energy. If Zhang had used the pearl back then, perhaps he would have been able to defeat the demon by himself then. Why then didn't he use it? Xiao thought, rolling the pearl on his palm. He was so lost in his thoughts that he did not hear approaching steps. The coffin bearer always walks with his coffin, was heard behind the young man's back. The owner of the voice turned out to be a green-eyed girl with a red bob and dressed in combat clothes. She served in the corpse department as a servant of calming souls, and in terms of skill she was not inferior to masters of the 9th rank. Brother, you left the service smugly. Do you know what management will do to you for this? The girl continued speaking. Pallbearer Ding Xiao greets senior student Liu Feiyan. Bowing before her in obedience, thereby showing his respect, our hero greeted. Although at this time he was thinking hard. His spiritual form has not yet been formed, and if he says how it was, Feiyan will not believe it, and he may even detect the instability of the black fog in his spiritual palace. Often those found to have unstable spiritual forms are destroyed, so Dean had to find a compelling reason to respond. Forgive me. During the delivery of the coffin, the spirit took possession of the girl's corpse. 2 senior members of the department were killed by the spirit. I miraculously managed to escape, so now I am without a coffin. I ask you to sort everything out. Our hero reported. Oh, do you really think that the 9th grade masters don't know when spirits awaken? And did the elders really not manage to escape? And you, an ordinary pallbearer, somehow did it? Do you think I'll believe this? Feiyan was indignant. After being possessed, Miss Yun turned into a 6-eyed blood spider, killing Elder Jiang and Mu. Then a mysterious master appeared and killed the 6-eyed blood spider, and at that moment, I managed to escape. Xiao lied again.
And as proof, he decided to present a talisman in which traces of the soul of the dead Miss Yun were preserved, so that the servant of the calm of souls could verify the authenticity of his words.
That's also true. Otherwise, how could he, an ordinary pallbearer, kill 2 masters? Although how can you find out from him whether he took anything extra for himself? Feiyan thought. So, thoughtfully and playfully, she looked at the sword tucked into the belt of the deceased Piaoxin. Brother, this is a very priceless sword, a rare thing. It also seems pretty familiar to me, she said at the same time taking the hilt of her sword. And before our hero had time to realize where everything was heading, the blade of Feiyan's sword flashed right past his face, cutting through the air. Maybe you washed something else with you? Let them look at you, sister, said the girl. She's looking for something. Is she really looking for the Tselin pearl? But if she finds out that I have the pearl, most likely she will think that I killed Jiang and Mu. Dean guessed. Jumping away, he tried to resolve the dispute peacefully. Before the corpse was contained, Senior Zhang handed me a sword for self-defense. I have nothing else. If you like this sword, then I will give it to you. I just ask you not to kill me, he begged. Enough pretense. Xuan would never give up his precious sword so easily. It's obvious that you stole it. If you obediently give back everything you took from him, I will let you leave because I am in a good mood today. Feiyan objected. and again she began to attack the pallbearer. Jiao only managed to dodge her blows. He knew that the servant was a spiritual practitioner of the 7 stars, and therefore he was not even a match for her, and he should run away. But Fei Yan was already hovering over him, threateningly swinging her sword. "Give me the Tsellen Pearl quickly!" she barked. However, Jiao did not want to give up so quickly, and therefore, having taken out the talisman of the tip, he immediately used it, and the girl's sword cut the talisman. And everything would have been fine, only this ordinary talisman of the tip was able to block the girl's spiritual form. Thus, having gained time, Jiao pulled out another talisman, only this time of speed. After which, at full speed, he headed into the forest grove. "Have you really decided to run away?" Fei Yan laughed, and Ding's retreat path was blocked by 2 men. Like the girl, they were servants of the Peace of Souls in the corpse department. The only difference is that their appearance was unremarkable. "Senior Miao, let me take care of him." Fei Yan asked permission from a man with a stronger physique. "You! Give the Tsellen Pearl immediately!" Shun ordered, and, not intending to resolve the dispute peacefully, manifested his spiritual form in the form of a brown bear.
I really don't know where the Tsellen Pearl is. How can elders violate the ban and attack their own? I'm suffocating from the death grip of the brown bear, answered Jiao.
The servants of the Peace of Souls, of course, did not believe him, and therefore continued to put pressure on the young man. Meanwhile, the baby in the Palace of Contemplation asked to come out. "I can no longer use the spiritual form. I'm afraid this is where my end will come." Our hero despaired, gritting his teeth. But when the bonds of Miao Shun were about to swallow him up, an unprecedented power awakened in the young man again, with the help of which he weakened the fight. "Isn't this guy a weakling? Where does he get his spiritual strength?" Shuchu was surprised. "Nonsense. It seems he used the Tsellen Pearl. Well, let's see how long he lasts." Shun laughed, and immediately regretted his words. Boom, as the spiritual power concentrated in Xiao's body could not stand it and poured out in the form of an explosion. Even through the layers of dust, Miao Shun tried not to lose sight of the Undertaker. Finally, the smoke cleared and they saw bare, destroyed walls and a broken road after the explosion. "Damn, we missed him!" Zhun cursed with annoyance in his voice. "Boss, I'll go after him," Shuchu immediately responded. "It's not worth it. The rapist has a strange spiritual power. I'm afraid we won't be able to catch up with him." Was he really able to reveal his spirit with a spiritual form after all? Miao thought. If this is so, then the Tsellen Pearl is a treasure in dangerous hands. Fei Yan was slightly worried. How could garbage reveal its spirit? "Lucky scoundrel. Let's go back to the department and I'll get it out of him with interest," Shun ordered after a little thought. The sun was setting below the horizon, and our hero finally stood at the gate to the city spiritual administration of the city of Nanlin. "Have I really reached control?" he rejoiced, sweating profusely and almost falling to his knees from fatigue. He should have conveyed information about the contents to the secretary as soon as possible to avoid further suspicion. Hearing the story of last night, the secretary was extremely surprised. "Who would have thought that the only survivor would be the pallbearer?" he repeated over and over again. "Exactly. It seems you are already aware of what happened," Xiao confirmed. "I guessed from the strange behavior of the lamp of dead souls that you encountered the contents. But I didn't even imagine that it would be you, the pallbearer, who would survive." "Tell me everything in detail. I'll write it down," answered the secretary, dipping his brush into ink. For the next half hour, only Dean spoke. And to write down everything that happened, the man needed more than one blank page of a notebook. That's how it all happened. Our hero finished. Garbage without a spiritual form? It is expected that you will lose consciousness. You are very lucky to survive. The secretary commented on the story he heard. Xiao had no choice but to ignore the insult and agree again. Having sent the covered notebook to a nearby pile on the table, the secretary told the young man to get lost, since he already had his hands full. "There is one more thing, sir. What should you do with the things of the 2 older ones?" Dean asked, slightly embarrassed. "Do you have anything valuable in the corpse department?" "Keep it," the man ordered, and without answering the young man's farewell, he continued to do his work. Coming out of the city administration, our hero did not notice anyone or anything. However, that same warrior girl was walking towards him. However, Xiao was too busy with thoughts to pay attention to her. "Since the management allowed me to keep the things of my elders, then I have the right to keep the pearl for myself. But Miao Shun can stop me from doing this. I should awaken my full spiritual form as soon as possible," the young man thought. But if he did not notice the war girl, then she turned her attention to him. Or rather, the aura surrounding the young man. The girl looked thoughtfully after the departing guy. But then they responded to her. Bai Shi, I see you were in no hurry. Lin Hong, the head of the corpse department of Nanling City, greeted the girl. I greet the head. Along the way, I accidentally came across a possessed woman and decided to check what happened. That's why I was late. The girl bowed in respectful worship and greeted. Really? I haven't heard of anything like this. Tell me in more detail, Hun asked. The aura of the possessed woman was strange, developing to the skies. I immediately hurried there, but when I arrived, only remnants of the six-eyed blood spider remained. The body of the ministers and the pallbearer was not found, said she. The head of the corpse department did not believe her words. I would like to know if anyone from the detachment that transported the coffin to the village of Li came to the city government, I asked. Young woman, the commander thought, remembering the deaths of the last days. Suddenly the man's mind became clear, and Miss Yun's death came to his mind. Is this really that guy? Okay, follow me, Hung commanded and went to the secretary. Si followed him with her tail. The head reread the written report from Ding Xiao's words over and over again. Wow, the guy was born wearing a shirt, he thought. It's not surprising that a dead man who is overwhelmed by anger is difficult to calm down. Possession could have caused such a strong aura to appear. Did the two ministers fail to cope? Hun thought out loud, handing over the notebook. Following him, Bai Shi began to examine the records. But she was not interested in the personality of the ministers, but in the coffin bearer. Is Ding Xiao still just a pallbearer? The girl asked with some sadness in her voice. Lin Hong sighed in disappointment. Yes. At that time you were both young talents. At one time you were accepted into spiritual management. Both were exceptions, but now is not the best time for this. Such a dark time, when the dead rise here and there, when everyone cares only about themselves. A person without a single drop of spiritual strength, like Ding Xiao, would be safest to remain within the walls of the spiritual administration, said Hong. But still he was glad that our hero was able to return safe. Even when two servants died from the clutches of a six-eyed bloody spider, he considered it incredible luck. However, Bai Si had a different opinion, and knew for sure that everything that happened was not just an accident. You see, in addition to the aura of the possessed, there was another aura, and I'm wildly curious about who the mysterious master who saved them was. The girl told about her interest. Don't worry about it. Since this has come to my attention, I will order an investigation into this matter, Lin Hong assured her. Heading towards the exit from the city government, she stopped. Head, do you know where he is now? She finally asked. At this time, while the servants of the corpse department were racking their brains over the identity of the mysterious master, our hero hurried home. There, sitting down at the roots of a tree growing in the middle of the yard, and entertaining herself by drawing in the sand, Dingling was waiting for her older brother. Finally, the gates swung open. I'm home, Xiao shouted from the threshold. Brother is back. I missed you so much. The girl immediately rushed to him with hugs. I missed you too. Have you behaved well in my absence? The young man became worried. Yeah, I did everything as you said. The girl answered and didn't tear a bit. But then her brother's appearance attracted her attention. Why are your clothes torn? Has something really happened? Lin was worried. Everything is fine, don't worry. Aren't I alive and well? Xiao smiled. You're trying to deceive me. More and more obsessed. Brother, maybe stop doing this work. My sister continued to insist. Stupid. Not everyone gets to serve in management, but I'm there. But I managed to reveal my spiritual form. Now our life will get better. Our hero told the good news. Needless to say, this was incredibly good news for Lin. By the way, while I was away, how did your illness progress? Xiao changed the subject. It's okay, brother. No need. I don't want you to look, the girl begged, taking a couple of steps back. Don't argue with me, turn around, the young man asked in a chastened tone. Lin had no choice but to resign himself and approach him. With a habitual movement of his hand, Xiao removed the red ribbon from his hair that was gathering his hair into a bun. But as soon as they fell freely onto her shoulders, the second face of the girl at the back of her head was revealed to the world. The only difference was that it did not function at all. It seems to have gotten bigger, our hero remarked to himself, watching as Lin tied her hair again. At first he thought it was only partial baldness. It would be a huge relief for him to know that this is just a physical genetic mutation and that everything is fine. However, everything was not like that. Our hero heard from old people said that spirits shave their heads, and this is a bad sign. If those around them knew about this, then at best they would both face expulsion, and at worst, death. However, Xiao believed that since Ling had been sick since birth, there must be a way to cure her. But as my sister grew up, the face on the back of her head also grew. Eyes and a butt appeared. After the Lofeng massacre 15 years ago, the spiritual administration issued a law on the elimination of carriers of the unstable form. Dean was afraid that if others found out about the instability of Lin's form, they would kill her. So he was afraid to ask anyone for help. But this cannot continue like this. If this creepy face is allowed to continue to grow, then in the future the girl will definitely be discovered and killed. I can't let my sister die. She's the only thing I have, Xiao thought desperately. Lin wrapped her small fingers around his rough, masculine hand. Brother, don't worry about me. So many years have passed. See, I'm still totally fine, aren't I? The girl smiled. In response, our hero hugged her tightly. I will find a medicine that will cure you, I promise, he whispered. Okay, I'll wait, Lin agreed, thanking God in her heart for such a caring brother. Meanwhile, Bai Shi did just that, asked passers-by where our hero's house was located. What a sweet girl. Why does she need this Grabanovite? Poor thing. All the passers-by felt sorry. He suffers insults and humiliation from his neighbors just because he works as a rakes-bearer? Ding Xiao, how have you lived all these years? The girl wondered, thoughtfully examining the gate leading to the house she needed. Once upon a time, more than 8 years ago, Ding Xiao was considered an unsurpassed talent. 8 years ago, our hero and Bai Shi entered the spiritual administration together as an exception. The chief master said that their destinies, as the destinies of talents, were intertwined from birth. At that time, she, like everyone else, was jealous of Xiao's talent and even followed him. One fine day, there was a competition between our hero and the then teenage girl, in which Dean, as always, won. Brother, one day I will surpass you, Bai Shi promised in her hearts. Yeah, you will definitely surpass me. The boy answered her with a radiant smile. When Xiao was taken to the capital's spiritual administration, she also entered the Baihei Spiritual Academy, and from that moment, their fates diverged. Remembering the past, Bai Shi still stood outside the gates of her old acquaintance's house. Could she ever have thought that today they would meet again? However, as fate would have it, she came to investigate the incident that happened to him. The girl had already raised her hand to knock, but she heard snippets of dialogue between brother and sister. Lin, what a beautiful sunset today. Let's have dinner outside, Xiao suggested. With pleasure, the girl picked up the idea. How many years have we not seen each other? If I burst in now, I'll ruin everything. Okay, I'd better go back to the chapter first and wait and see for the investigation to finish. She decided, and turned around and went back to the city. But our hero noticed the presence of her aura, but was unable to reveal her identity. Brother, what is it? Lin was worried. Yes, nothing. Let's go, otherwise the food will get cold, Xiao answered, leading her deeper into the house. After dinner, as always before bed, our hero improved through meditation. At the end, he was transported to his spiritual palace of contemplation. Master, this spiritual dust is too little. I'm too hungry. The spiritual form begged. I know, buddy. I'll find a way to find you more, Dean promised. He understood that dust alone would not be enough, but he needed to achieve the basis of 3-star adept cultivation. He'll probably still need to go to the store tomorrow. Having had breakfast and making sure that everything was fine with Lin, our hero the next day hurried to the trading hall of the city spiritual administration. The building was quite extensive, with 3 floors and an attic. Hey monkey, are you behind the counter today? Xiao turned to the small seller. Yeah, Nail. You came for spiritual dust, right? The teenage boy greeted. His name was Hao, and for his age he was quite a savvy child. Yeah. This time the corpse department servant with whom I was killed died, so the secretary allowed me to take their things for myself. Our hero told about the night adventure a couple of days ago. What? Dead? And how are you? The boy instantly became excited. Due to his social status, the young man lived rather modestly, and therefore decided to exchange the things that he inherited from his 2 elders at a profit. I'm fine. Look, how much will you charge? He asked, holding out a box of things. So, quatrefoil, imprinter, igniters, punishers, 3 words. These are quite expensive talismans. Considering 20% the total comes out to 14,500. Hao calculated. Please set aside 12 for medicine for my sister. I will take 20 grams of dust for myself and exchange the rest for 2 flight talismans and 6 speed talismans. Having heard the price, Xiao ordered. Ladushki, wait, I'll bring everything now. The boy answered. A minute later, after running around the entire building and collecting what he needed, he brought them to our hero. After saying goodbye, Xiao planned to send him home, and since there was still half a month before the entrance exams, he wanted to work hard with cultivation and become a 9th grade minister. At the exit of the Spiritual Administration Trading House, there was a notice board. Damn, this year's exams are much more difficult than last, commented one of those gathered at the bulletin board. Senior disciple Fang Ji, what are you doing? Another student who approached him did not understand. It turned out that the other 5 departments thought that there was little work and a lot of money in the pipe department, so they decided to reduce the staff of the cadaver department. Even the head of Lin Hong alone cannot influence this, so he can only accept the new rules of the game. It is said that those who participate in the examination for entry into the corpse department will have to fight with the corresponding candidates for the spiritual department, Fang Ji said. Will he fight? But these departments are not in harmony. Aren't they just looking for a reason to hurt our department? The interlocutor suggested. Their conversation was observed by the trio already known to us, headed by Miao Xun, and with him Liu Feiyan and Sun Shuchu. Then what should we do? Shuchu became worried. Hey, why are you so scared? Feiyan sarcastically. Shut up, both of you. When swimming against the current, those who do not swim forward swim backwards. Even if there were no innovation, we cannot relax. Sun commented on the news. Our hero noticed the appearance of the trio. Do they want to participate too? Tigers and leopards outside, jackals and wolves inside? Looks like it won't be easy this time. Ding Xiao sighed heavily, thinking, and without wasting time, I went outside the city of Nianlin to train. This is how he spent every day in his free time from work. Possessing a spiritual form, the young man specially bought various talismans and was now diligently studying them. For example, at the moment he was mastering the volley technique. Instantly picking up speed on the spot, Xiao knocked down 3 whole trees with one blow, using his hand like a ball. He could not even imagine that he could be so capable and that he would ever have such strength. The young man easily mastered even such a complex spell as the volley talisman. Congratulations, you have successfully broken through to the level of a 6-star spiritual practitioner. It is worth noting that your current strength has already surpassed the strength of other stages of the same stage. In other words, you can defeat even a 7-star adept. A voice was heard from the spiritual palace of contemplation of our hero. Then let's go. I want to climb to the top. Xiao responded to the spiritual form and, taking a deep breath, jumped from stone to stone and climbed the mountain in 2 leaps. Soaring in the air, he watched as the last rays of the sun said goodbye to the world. So this is what it feels like to be strong. Our hero admired, spreading his arms and trying to touch the clouds. His joy knew no bounds, and he was looking forward to the examination of the cadaver department. The next day, the tournament participants gathered in the courtyard of the city spiritual administration. Chief Ling Hong was the first to do the honor. Dear Masters, today the exam of our cadaver department begins. However, this year some changes have been made. Firstly, the difficulty of the test will be at the level of the Secret Kingdom. And secondly, Masters of the Corpse and Spiritual Department will take part in it. 2 teams of 5 people each. He repeated the innovation. Behind him, important personalities of the city of Nianlin, including the mayor of the city Bai Shou and his daughter Bai Shi, were sitting in chairs. Where are you looking? The father asked, watching his daughter's gaze. The spiritual department is clearly here with bad intentions. Shared her observations with the girls. But then Lin Hong's speech was interrupted. The team that was the first to eliminate and calm the leader of evil spirits at the level of the Secret Kingdom in its entirety moves on, while the other team is eliminated. Continued the head of the warring spiritual department, Zhang Tanseling, instead of Hong. And he sarcastically remarked that does everyone still think that the students of the corpse department have a chance to win? Here is a ram, and I didn't believe Fang Ji. We will really compete with the students of the spiritual department. The guy from the corpse department grabbed his head. But this is a team test. If we work in a coordinated manner, maybe we will be able to cope. One of his comrades tried to calm him down, but their conversation was interrupted by a man approaching with 2 boxes. This is a draw for the spiritual and cadaveric departments, each with an equal number of participating teams. Who will be first? He asked. Sun Suchu's hand immediately reached out from the crowd, and he and his friends were incredibly lucky. Bro, all three of us are on the same team. Shuchu was delighted. Yeah, great, let's do it together. Miao Shun agreed, and only Feiyan did not like this arrangement. It seemed to her that with such a start, the competition would be boring. Lin Hong watched the trio tensely. An 8th grade Soul Repose Minister and 2 9th grade Soul Repose Ministers. I think they will make a good team, he hoped. Suddenly a wave of revival passed through the crowd. Did this one forget? Those around him glanced displeasedly towards our hero making his way forward. It was not clear to them why the hornbeam bearer came to the competition. I wish to take part in the exam. Standing in front of the head of the corpse department, Ding Xiao expressed his desire. Needless to say, no one expected such an initiative from him, especially Bai Shou and her father. What? Do you want to take part this year? We defend the honor of our department. There is no reason for a pallbearer without spiritual strength to get in the way. Let's get out of here. Don't distract us from our work. The secretary refused him, laughing out loud. There is no rule prohibiting Grobanovites from participating in the exam. Please allow me to pass, objected our hero. Well, if that's what you want, then take the spiritual strength test. But I advise you not to disgrace yourself. The man allowed, pointing his head at a special wheel in the ground. It's unfair. None of the participants passed the test for spiritual powers. Why then should he? Hao stood up for our hero as if coming out of nowhere. Because others have it, unlike him. But if he doesn't want to, he can get lost, the man answered without skimping on words. Despite his rather young age, Hu was about to shout a couple of strong words at him, but Xiao stopped him, and with a confident gait he approached the wheel. He only needed to prove that he had spiritual power, and not to show all its greatness. They only show the level of spiritual power, and not the power itself, so the young man should have simply restrained his power, and so no one would have any suspicions. Having concentrated, he touched his palm to the center of the magic circle, and the young man's aura, like fog, gradually began to take shape. 3 trigrams, he has the 3rd level of spiritual power, Hao admired. Where does this brat get his spiritual power? Almost choking on the water from the bowl, Lin Hong was amazed. It seems that last time the pallbearer's escape was not just luck. Sun Shuchu slowly began to guess. But Miao Shun continued to believe that perhaps it was because of the Qilin pill. Mr. Secretary, now can I draw lots? Our hero asked again. The man nodded confidently, and he handed the young man a box with numbered tablets. But Lin Hong had other plans. Even if the boy has spiritual power, the test is too dangerous, so it's better to play it safe, he thought, and to himself he began to whisper the spell he needed. After sorting through the planks, Xiao finally pulled out one. The number 2 was clearly engraved on the tablet. Second team, you go to those 3, explained the secretary. Sepulchre. How many years? How many winters? Shun Shuchu welcomed the new member with open arms. Brother, don't worry. We'll take good care of you, Feiyan assured our hero. And only Miao Shun frowned, but they soon had to leave their victim of ridicule alone. It's so good that I'm not in your place. What a disappointment to fight against a group of weaklings. Such a pitiful sight was heard from the opposite side of the square. From there, selected participants from the spiritual department, headed by Xiao Ran, were sent to the guys from the large department. In his appearance, he very much resembled a hyena, black hair, a cunning face, and a grin. The small fry pallbearer dared to take part in the certification. Then it's no wonder why the cadaver department can't do its job. Fortunately, our spiritual department got rid of such garbage. He continued to mock. I couldn't even imagine that our opponents would be Xiao Ran, the most arrogant servant from the spiritual department. And he is much stronger than Miao Shun in a direct confrontation. I'm afraid we will lose, our hero thought, trying not to pay attention to the sharp words of his enemy. Do you even know how many of our brothers gave their lives in the fight against the possessed? Do you have any respect for their contribution to the common cause? Miao Shun could not stand such impudence. Exactly. The only garbage here is in your mouth. You sit back and enjoy the fruits of the dedication of the corpse department workers. Feiyan came to the defense of her department. Zhang Tangxing, why do your students insult their colleagues, thereby violating the rules of interdepartmental etiquette? Will you let them get away with it? Lin Hong was indignant at this behavior. Huh. Is Xiaoran wrong about something? Tianzong chuckled. Such a tone was considered unforgivable. How dare you! Hun immediately got angry. Masters, calm down. You shouldn't keep young people from adventures because of empty speeches. Bai Shou tried to resolve the quarrel between the two men. If the head of Lin does not agree, then we will wait for the results. If at least one of your teams passes, I and all my students will personally apologize to you. Zhang Tangxing suggested making a bet. Excellent. I hope Chief Jiang will not go back on his words. Lin Hong agreed. Ding Xiao, I risked my authority to help you get into the second team. Please, under the protection of those three, you must definitely pass. He hoped to himself. You are still missing one participant. Do you still have 8th or 9th grade ministers to certify? The secretary continued to look for the 5th participant from the corpse department, but no one wanted to go out. They all knew that even in the same class, the students of the spiritual department were head and shoulders above all of them combined. It was obvious to them that the opponents were stronger, and the corpse department had no chance, and therefore they did not want to disgrace themselves. If you do not find a 5th participant, your team will be disqualified, the secretary said about another rule of the competition. Xun Shuchu gritted his teeth in anger. Underpants, he whispered to the others over his shoulder. Indeed, the corpse department is a bunch of cowards. How did you plan to participate in the exam without the required number of people? Cowards. Shenran laughed, and along with him the rest of the servants of the spiritual department. But even after his words, the guys from the corpse department did not dare to come forward. But then, behind everyone, someone's hand rose uncertainly. Can I also take part as a grab-bearer? A sonorous, boyish voice sounded, and Hao began to make his way through the crowd of men. Monkey, you're fine in the store. Why do you need all this? I didn't understand the choice of my little friend Xiao. You managed to stay here for so many years without a spiritual form. I want to follow in your footsteps. Although I am weak, I will try my best, Hao promised. And here is another ballast. Suchu commented not cheerfully on the personality of the new participant, while Fayan suggested that the teenager looks quite good for a human shield. Okay, the time has come. The secret kingdom is opening. As soon as the 5th member of the corpse department team showed up, Hong said, a portal began to open from behind him. The exam will last 3 days. The time flow in the secret kingdom is 10 times slower than in the real world, so be careful. During the test, it is forbidden to kill other ministers. Those who violate will be expelled from the city spiritual administration. Len Hong finally repeated the basic rules. Eat. The participants of both departments answered in one voice, and without hesitation we moved forward. Jun was the first to pass through the portal. We must get ahead of the spiritual department to eliminate the main spirit. He motivated his team earlier. Finding themselves in a parallel world, all 5 began to look around, and the only question that worried everyone was why were all the graves within sight of their eyes dug? Wait, not all of them, said our hero. A little further from everyone, there was another coffin that had not been dug out of the ground. Sensing the beating of living hearts and the aroma of ordinary mortals, the restless spirit of the deceased began to beat in the coffin. Have you come to help me find my grandfather? Said a thin, childish voice. Another moment and the lid of the coffin flew to the side and a little girl crawled out of it. There were dark holes in her eye sockets, and she held a small doll with the tips of her decaying fingers. Brothers and sister, have you come to help me find my grandfather? The dead girl repeated her question again, crawling out of the coffin. I'm lost, help me, she begged in a hoarse voice, raising her doll up. Guys, things are bad. This is a master-rank evil spirit, Miao Xun warned everyone. In theory, they, as students, should have received the weakest spirit of the rank of adept, but in front of them, possessed 1 step higher than the spirit of the master phase. 5 participants from the cadaver department were not sure that this was a simple accident. So will you help me find my grandfather or not? I cannot wait any longer, the dead girl screamed in hysterics, gradually moving step by step towards the guys. Out of fear, Hao clung to our hero, and everyone else took a fighting stance. Damn, the girl has a bad character. Zuchu was indignant. And that first we need to calm her down, and for this we need to find her weak point, Shun suggested. Xiaomi slowly got down to business, baby. What does your grandfather look like? We will help you find him, he promised. He is tall, long arms, thin face, black lips, green teeth, and most importantly, he cooks divine soup. So tasty and refreshing. The granddaughter described the grandfather's appearance. She also told a sad story. It turned out that the monster took the grandfather, sealed him in the formation, and now she cannot enter there and cannot save him. She is too emotionally unstable. It is unknown what she will do next. We need to find out how strong she is, Feiyan suggested. Our hero absolutely agreed with her. And ready for absolutely anything, he began to approach the girl. "Baby, where is this formation? We will help save your grandfather." He continued to repeat. The dead girl broke into a smile. "Brother, I immediately realized that you are very good. Come on, I'll show you. Let's go for food. Let's go for food. Let's go for my beloved grandfather." He pulls out his hands and opens his head. "He is my favorite girl," the girl said, turning 180 degrees and heading somewhere. "Bro, what is this song about dismemberment? I don't feel good about her." Hao was a little scared. "If my guesses are correct, I'm afraid she's leading us to death," answered our hero. And without wasting time, he followed the girl. Cole kept him company. "Boss, what are we going to do?" Feiyan asked about further actions. "First, we'll go after them, and then we'll eliminate all three," Shun ordered, disregarding the rule that one should not kill the participants. For some time, everyone silently followed the dead girl. Finally, Miao Shun decided that now is the most opportune moment. "Let's start," he gave the command to his friends, and all three, with their joint efforts, called forth a soul-capturing formation spell. The restless soul, our hero and Hao did not even have time to look back when a huge magical dome descended on them from heaven. But Xiao was not at a loss. Grabbing the boy by the scruff of the neck, he managed to jump to the side, and only a dead girl was found under the dome. But as soon as our hero freed himself from one danger, a knife thrown by someone flew straight to his head. Quickly raising his leg, he threw away the bladed weapon. "Damn, he managed to dodge," commented on his unsuccessful attempt to kill participant Zuchu. Meanwhile, the dead girl was sobbing bitterly under the dome. "What kind of war are you? You offended a child." She was indignant, and our hero, finally landing on the ground, was able to breathe in the air deeply. It was dangerous, very dangerous. We almost ended up being sealed by the pharmacy. Fortunately, I immediately noticed the trio's hostility towards us. Xiao was happy. Now he was surrounded by enemies on both sides. On the left, 3 traitors, and on the right, a restless spirit was imprisoned in a magical dome, which was about to break out. "This demon is too strong. The pharmacy will not stand it. We need to get away quickly," Shun shouted to his 2 friends before rushing far away from this terrible place. "Are you planning to run away? You'll all end up in my soup," the dead girl screamed, after which she squeezed her toy so hard that blood poured out of the doll's mouth and eyes. The girl's anger was so fierce that her inherent strength destroyed the protective formation in an instant. "Boss, help!" Suchu and Feiyan shouted in fear. Now the power of the restless spirit has turned into bloody fibers, wrapping around the guys and preventing them from moving. A little more, and they turned into cocoons from head to toe. "Guys!" Jun immediately rushed to their aid. He sincerely hoped to help them, but when he saw bloody fibers moving towards him in order to imprint him, he resigned himself to the fact that he would die. However, he began to panic early. Burn! And our hero's sword flashed right in front of his face, cutting through the fibers. "Save them! I'll detain her," Xiao ordered. Jun was surprised, to put it mildly, because he himself had recently wanted to kill the young man, and now he saved his life. However, he did not have time to think. Taking out his sword, he began to cut through the cocoons. But imagine his surprise when the cocoon turned out to be empty. Suddenly, the man felt a sharp pain in his back. Turning around, Shun grew cold with fear. A knife was gradually digging into his back. "Meat, there will be soup," Hao said, thrusting the knife further and further into the back. His gaze was clouded and his actions predictable. "Wow, what a scent! How beautiful!" Smelling the smell of fresh blood, the dead girl admired. The most terrible thing was that now in her hands were small dolls in the form of Feiyan and Suchu. Playing with them, the girl said, "Now all that's left is to grind them into soup." Meanwhile, our hero hurried as fast as he could to Xuan to help. "Monkey, wake up!" Xiao shouted. He hoped that his voice would make Hao come to consciousness, but he was mistaken, and the boy attacked him, almost hitting him in the eye, and therefore the young man had to defend himself. "Don't let yourself be deceived. It's not him anymore." Shun tried to reason with our hero. However, Xiao was also aware of this sad truth. He grabbed the boy by the shoulder and threw him onto his back, and with all his strength he knocked him to the ground. The blow was so great that Hao's body squatted slightly into the ground. Xiao, of course, did not want to take the boy's life, and therefore only made him unconscious for a while until they dealt with the restless spirit. When the 5th member of the corpse department was neutralized, Dean switched to the dead girl. He guessed that she could control other people. "Hey brother, your guys are kind of fragile, crumbling," said the girl. showing our hero a wooden doll in the form of Hao. And with a malicious smile, she said that it was no big deal, because they could be molded again. And to confirm her words, she began to pull out parts of wooden dolls from her pockets. When she stuck them to Hao's figurine, the teenager stood up unnaturally, and his arms and legs rotated in different directions, falling into place. This is puppetry art. Only some possessed people have special abilities. With her power, she deprives people of their will, turning them into crazy dolls. Jun was horrified. I agree. This is terrible. But in half an hour, the consciousness of the subordinates will dissipate forever, and therefore, we need to return them as soon as possible. Our hero did not panic. Meanwhile, the possessed Hao began to attack. I will restrain him, while you deal with the evil spirit. Be careful. She's at the level of a master, Shun reminded, barely dodging the boy's dodgy hands. Fine, our hero shouted. It looks like the doll in her hands is a magical instrument. First, you need to take it away from her, the young man realized. But the dead girl did not want to retreat from hers. Adults are offending me again. Shamelessness, she complained out loud and rushed to meet Xiao. But the young man managed to pull out the speed talisman on the fly. At least the girl has something. Catch up? I love playing this game. She was happy. Of course, the dead girl could not run fast, and therefore used a magical technique called heavenly snares. These are something like huge, long threads that controlled the spirit. Only Xiao skillfully maneuvered between them. And with each step, he came closer and closer to the restless spirit. And as soon as the distance allowed, he threw the sword forward at himself. Out of surprise, the girl lost her balance and fell to the ground, letting go of the doll, which our hero immediately picked up. Rotten wood and dead roots retreat from the living. He began to mutter a protective spell, and from his words, Hu's mind cleared, and the numbing shackles fell from his body. Ah, where did I get these nails from? The boy squealed, examining himself from all sides. Our hero smiled. He managed to help his friend, but he shouldn't have been so distracted. The energy core in the doll that Xiao still hadn't released from his hands shook. Having pierced his palm with sharp pain, the young man reflexively unclenched his fingers, and the doll fell to the ground. Ha ha ha. This is what happens to those who offend me. Feel how the blade pierces your heart. The dead girl laughed, and anticipating pleasure, she swung at the victim. Master! Master! Cried the spiritual form in the palace of contemplation. Buddy! Our hero whispered barely audibly with his lips, losing more and more strength. Damn spirit, how soon did he dare to harm you? The kid was indignant, and by the time the dead girl's blade hung over Dean's neck, the young man dodged. Now there was no good-natured brother standing in front of her who wanted to help her find her grandfather. Little thing, let's play, our hero suggested, looking at her with a crazy look. Even without that, his strange aura became cloudy, and the air behind him became denser, forming into a kind of tail. Wow, little brother transformed, how fun, the girl exclaimed. Is it fun? Now I'll show you real fun, Dean barked, and with one blow he knocked down the girl with his energy tail. So much so that stones fell scattered from the place where the body landed. I'll tell my grandfather that you offend me, the restless spirit whined. Now she didn't want to have fun, because the tail of the guy hanging over her filled her with fear, because she didn't even know what kind of spiritual form the guests had. And what will he do to me? Brother hasn't had enough fun with you yet, Xiao laughed, and he began to attack. Having run further into the forest grove, Shun and the boy watched what was happening. At first I thought that his spiritual form was the result of absorbing the Qilin pill, but it turns out he had his own. But why does he have such a violent spirit form? The man didn't understand. Meanwhile, the dead girl, engulfed by our hero's energy tail, hung in the air. I'm not having fun. Let me go. Otherwise I will tell Grandpa to kill you and your friends, she threatened in fear. Little one, what I hate most is when someone points at me and argues with me, Xiao mocked in response. Finally, Miao Shun decided to stop everything. The fact that his accomplice turned out to be a powerful master made him incredibly happy. However, the madness in the young man's eyes was frightening at the same time. Calm down, he tried to stop our hero. However, it was no longer possible to prevent the inevitable. No! Hurt! The girl screamed chokingly when the blossoming living flower on Dean's energy tail began to absorb her. Ahaha! It's fun, isn't it? Without hearing her suffering, the young man enjoyed the agony. So this is a spiritual form? How powerful! Hao was surprised, while Shun could not believe his eyes. The person standing in front of him could absorb the powers of the possessed. Before the girl died, Xiao asked her a question about where the other missing participants were. They are with my grandfather. The restless spirit answered barely audibly before falling silent forever. Great, I'll personally say hello to him from you, Xiao finally promised. Now he could finally exhale. After all, resisting such a monster cost him enormous strength. Now there is little time left. We need to find Liu Feiyan and Sun Shuchu as soon as possible. Having caught his breath, he began to think through a plan for subsequent actions. Suddenly, to the side of himself, out of the corner of his eyes, he noticed a moving shine. It was Miao Shun who stood opposite him in a fighting stance with his sword raised. "There are devils in still waters," he said. "Zun wanted to kill me before, but I didn't take revenge because of the rules. But now he knows about the instability of my spirit form, and therefore I'm afraid he can't be left alive." Instantly flashed through our hero's head. Fortunately, the man was not pointing his sword at him. "From the road!" Shun shouted and rushed past Xiao. Leaning forward, he threw the sword with all his strength. "Come out!" he shouted into the environment. As soon as the echo of his voice died down, someone's footsteps were heard from above on the stone cobblestones next to them. Who would have thought that you could really cope with the possessed people of the master phase? "I underestimated you, but your spiritual form is extremely interesting. But what difference does it make, one way or another? You have almost exhausted your spiritual strength. I'm afraid you won't be able to leave this place." Xiaoran mocked, throwing up 2 wooden dolls in the form of Feiyan and Shuchu with his hand. After which, he gave the command to detain the trio, and the guys were surrounded by the rest of the exam participants from the spiritual department. "Thank you for clearing the path. See you never." John said his final goodbyes, after which he disappeared into the shadows of the stone cliffs. "Creature!" the angry Zun shouted after the traitor. Unlike Hao, who was shaking with fear, our hero tried to calm down and think about the situation with a cool head. It was now clear to him that Xiao Ran had planned an ambush from the very beginning, and now saw Xiao's spirit form. Unlike Ran, Hao and Miao Shun also saw her. But it is quite possible that the difficulties will bring them all closer, and they will not inform on him. However, Xiao Ran certainly cannot be left alive. But first they had to deal with 3 opponents from the spiritual department. "Can you still fight?" Ding Xiao asked. "It seems like yes. I can still use spiritual incarnation," Shun answered. "Then I'll leave this punks to you, and I'll return the wooden dolls," our hero ordered, pulling out the speed talisman. "Khan to you!" The participants from the spiritual department laughed. But imagine their surprise when, after doing several somersaults and jumps, our hero easily rushed past them. As he picked up speed, the young man himself was surprised, noticing that he now had better control of his body, and suggested that perhaps this was due to the fact that he had absorbed the powers of an evil spirit. "Hey, why is this guy so fast? Even with a speed talisman, this is impossible." The guys from the spiritual department couldn't believe their eyes, but their torpor only played into Zhun's hands. "Hey, don't get distracted!" he shouted, hitting one of the guys in the jaw with his powerful fist. Xiaoran didn't have time to move far from the scene of the clash between the dead girl and the participants from the corpse department when he sensed something was wrong. Ding Xiao rushed straight at him from behind and said, "Come on, return the figures," began to attack. "Ha ha ha, so are you the grabber? And I was expecting Miao Shun." John pulled out his sword and laughed. In fact, he was not so funny, because quite recently he had felt the aura of an possessed person, and clearly understood that there was clearly something wrong with the young man standing in front of him, and he needed to think through every step. And he immediately decided to use his spiritual power in the form of an armored bull. "Come on, try it, take it away," Xiao said, butting his horns and digging the ground with his hooves. Our hero thought for a moment. "Then don't blame me for being rude," he shouted, and decided to fight for life and death. And so 2 forces, 2 oppositions attacked each other in a crazy fight. "So you have a problem, form. All unstable ones must be destroyed. I will report this to your department today," John said, seeing the full power of our hero's aura. However, Xiao has already made his decision. "Sorry." That's all he said before his energy tail hit the enemy in the solar plexus. Not expecting such a strong attack, Jean lost his balance and fell on his back. "Impossible. How were you able to break through my spiritual form?" The servant of the spiritual department did not understand, crawling back feverishly. "You are not stable. Do you understand that a terrible death awaits you? You are a creature from a corpse." Jean cursed the young man standing in front of him, spitting blood. "Don't you understand? If I were the content, then there would be nothing left of you." Our hero explained such an easy truth. "Even if this is not so, I will still take you with me to the next world," Jean shouted with all his strength and rushed to the grab-bearer. Xiao did not expect such a turn of events, but the traitor managed to grab his clothes and jump down into the gorge. After some time, Hao and Shun arrived at the place of the battle between the guys. A huge number of traces and two figures in the form of Feiyan and Shuchu reminded of what happened. Bro, brother. Sitting on the edge of the gorge and looking at the darkness, Hu said, "He couldn't die so easily, he's too strong." Shun desperately did not believe in what had happened. Suddenly he felt a faint aura emanating from Feiyan's figure. A couple of minutes later, having picked up the younger one, he followed the trail. Fortunately, our hero managed to survive the fall, landing on a soft river mule at the bottom of the gorge. Having calmed his breathing, the young man began to row to the shore. Zhenya was not next to him. Apparently he was carried downstream, and the young man also felt a lot of spiritual energy around him, and suggested that perhaps he was in the grottos of the immortals. Having become discouraged, Xiao decided to find his team as soon as possible. But along the way he came across whole groves of amazing yellow flowers, blooming with the most wonderful aromas. "These are golden licorice, Buddha flowers," he exclaimed, looking at the plants. In the Book of Secrets of the Corpse Department, once upon a time he read that these flowers possessed unimaginable spiritual energy. So the assumption that Xiao is in the grottos of the immortals is incorrect. "Master, here cultivation goes much faster. You can break through to the level of a 9-star spiritual practitioner." The voice of a child was heard from the spiritual palace of contemplation. "Thank you, buddy, for saying that. We'll do it." Our hero thanked, and without wasting time, he began to improve. At this time, the teenager and the team leader from the corpse department followed a thread of aura from the doll to their destination, to the secret kingdom of the boss's lair. There, unconscious Feiyan and Suchu, bound by their hands, hung from the ceiling of the cave above the bloody lake. "This is sister and brother!" Ho was scared, hiding behind Jun. "There's something strange in that puddle below them. Be careful," the man warned him, just in case. And his intuition did not fail. Right before their eyes, the back of the head first appeared from the bloody lake, then the head, and now in front of them stood the grandfather of the previously defeated dead girl. She didn't flinch when she described her grandfather's exact appearance. "My glorious granddaughter, you did not disappoint me." The monster, who was an obsessed, bloodthirsty dead man, rejoiced. "This is a 3rd-level master, we will never win. What's wrong with this test? Let's run," Shun commanded, sensing. But the dead man did not plan to leave the ingredients in the soup alive. In an instant, bloody hands rose from the bloody lake, catching up with the fleeing guests. While Hu and Shun screamed heart-rendingly in fear, our hero meditated, enjoying the silence of calm. Finally, the moment came when Xiao reached the level of a 9-star spiritual practitioner disciple. "Congratulations. In terms of strength, you are now more powerful than a 1st-level soul master." The little one from the spiritual palace of contemplation rejoiced for the master. "I didn't know that you were capable of absorbing both demonic and spiritual energy. So cultivation will now go much faster," Dean answered him. But suddenly he became wary. The familiar demonic energy appeared around him, but he had not noticed it before, because then it was overflowing with various energies. Going towards the place where the energy intensified, the young man entered the grotto, and here and there human bones and skulls were scattered, and mummified human bodies were hanging from the ceiling along with cobwebs. But Xiao was interested in the coffin standing in the middle. Coming closer, our hero examined the funeral wooden box. It had the seals of the talisman department on it, so it was supposed to be used for testing. It looked like someone had moved the coffin, but Dean didn't feel any energy in the coffin. Having gathered his resolve, the young man threw back the lid. Inside, hugging, lay the 2 dried bodies of a granddaughter with a restless spirit, which a few hours ago had fought with Xiao, and most likely her grandfather. Even in the secrets of the corpse department, there is no mention of the fact that the soul is separated from the body to create a demon. Is this really specially designed for testing? The level of these demons is much higher than that of the test participants. Is this a test of our response and a search for weakness in the enemy? Our hero tried to find an excuse, but there was something else that worried the young man. He was attracted by the strange pose of the dead, an elderly man hugging his granddaughter, holding her hands, and it seemed as if the girl was carrying something in her hands. Most likely, someone has already been here and taken this important thing from the coffin. Meanwhile, the bloody hands were getting tighter and also squeezing the necks. "I'm choking," Hu sighed barely audibly. Jun shouted curses while gradually plunging into the bloody slurry. "Sao Bao is great. Grandpa will cook soup for you now. It's a pity that we missed the most delicious ones, but that's okay. I can already smell him. I can't believe that he himself came to me." Watching the inconsolable attempts of the guys to free themselves, the bloodthirsty dead man said, and he began to turn around at the smell indicating the newly arrived guests. Without a shadow of fear on his face, Ding Xiao, grabbing the coffin, looked at him menacingly. "Great, brother! Are you okay?" Hao rejoiced. "This bloodthirsty dead demon of the 3rd level. Be careful," Shun warned, just in case. Without wasting time, our hero decided to act. First, he placed the coffin on the ground. "Today I will fulfill my duty as a servant of the corpse department. I will destroy the demon," the young man promised. "Grandfather, is this the same coffin?" The wooden doll in the shape of a granddaughter squeaked in a thin voice, sitting on her grandfather's shoulder. "Don't worry, everything is fine," the bloodthirsty monster reassured her. "Pallbearer, you are very brave. If you dare to destroy my granddaughter's body, I will skin you alive." He swore in an instant, taking out his sword and approaching Xiao. But our hero had already planned everything in advance, and acting as bait, he might be able to catch the demon in a trap. "Evil spirit, leave your body, find peace in your soul. Let go of all grudges." The young man muttered a spell using a talisman to seal the soul, but the monster skillfully avoided any attempts to disable himself. "Grandfather, hack him to death." The figure of a dead girl was rooting for her only loved one. Another moment and our hero barely managed to dodge the sword swinging at him. And with the help of the speed talisman, he jumped back, gaining time. "You are full of shortcomings. Are you dying to get into my soup?" asked the monster, and without waiting for an answer, he slowly began to immobilize his victim. Moreover, the bloody lake turned out to be alive and spreading like a swamp, sucked in the young man. "So you're caught. I'll cut off your head and cook meat soup," the monster concluded as he approached Cao. "Already close enough, time to attack," thought our hero, and trying to show all his acting skills, he quietly took out the Qilin pearl, and having calculated the diagonal of the throw, he threw the pearl. It was so lucky that it landed right in his mouth. As soon as the pearl penetrated the body of the bloodthirsty dead man, an explosion occurred. Gradually the dust settled, holding the girl's sitting doll. The grandfather reassured her. "Everything is fine. While I'm here, Bao will eat his soup," he asserted. But only his granddaughter heard his last words because the energy tail pierced his head. "Grandfather! Grandfather!" The girl's doll desperately screamed along with the headless body of the monster, falling into the bloody lake. Boom! It was the liberated Feian and Sun Shuchu, still unconscious, who fell to the ground. Boom again! Hui and Shun, freed from the shackles, were finally able to breathe normally. "Brother Dean, you are great. I can't believe you managed to defeat a rank 3 master." Hun admired our hero. "No, this is not the end yet." Xiao hastened to disappoint him. As soon as he uttered these words, the body of a bloody dead man with a new-grown head began to slowly crawl out of the remaining bloody puddle. "This is power, this taste beckons." As if possessed, he said, tightly squeezing the hilt of his sword with his hand. "You leave and call the corpse department for help, and I will detain the bloodthirsty dead man," Xiao ordered. Hao was about to object to him, but our hero objected to him by holding out the golden licorice, or as it is also popularly called, the Buddha flower. "This is our only chance to survive. Go ahead, I'll be fine," he repeated, raising his voice slightly. "Brother Dean, be careful," Hu asked, placing Feiyan on his still fragile boyish shoulders, and Miao Shun picked up Suchu. "Try to stay alive until we return," he said finally, hiding in the distance. Following them with his gaze, our hero stood in a fighting stance, preparing to fight until his last breath. "You must make amends for the fact that I missed these delicious ingredients," the monster charged. "Well, don't worry, and I will help you calm down in peace," Dean promised. Meanwhile, Hu and Shun hurried to the portal as fast as they could. But suddenly an obstacle appeared on their road. A servant from the spiritual department committed a real crime. From the coffin where the grandfather and granddaughter lay, he took a soup bowl, and by cutting his palm, filled the bowl with his blood, thereby manipulating the restless souls. "Every road is narrow for enemies," he said instead of greeting. "This cup looks like a relic of that demon," the still weak Sun Shuchu guessed. "Xiao Ran, how dare you donate your blood to strengthen the demon? No wonder you promised that no one from the cadaver department would be able to pass the test. This was all planned from the very beginning." Shun began to read the notation. "So what? I was seriously injured because of Ding Xiao, and now I am on the verge of failure. This relic was originally created to be used in a test, but now since I can't leave, you won't leave either," Zhan threatened. Suddenly Hao's face lit up. He turned to Miao Shun and said quietly, "Brother Ding said that grandfather is related to his granddaughter, and the granddaughter loves soup. So this cup could be the key to calming the demon. After his revelation, Shun changed his plan of action. The support from the corpse department will take a long time, and Ding Xiao's strength is running out. Let's take the cup away from him, he commanded, carefully laying Shuchu on the ground. Jan smiled with broken lips. It's true, I can't fight anymore, but I still have comrades, he said. His words served as a kind of battle cry, and dozens of dead men began to stir behind him. As a minister of the spiritual department, how dare you use corpses? Miao Shun was horrified. In response, Zhan laughed and warned that if the dead do not stop them during life, then it is quite natural for them to continue their work and torment the guys after death. Having realized the depth of the situation, there was no longer fear in Shun's heart, only hatred and anger. His body instantly transformed and became tens of times stronger, all because he summoned his spiritual form of a brown bear. When he growled a couple of times, it seemed as if thunder had entered the cave with him, and driven by rage, he did not wait for the corpses to attack and began to eliminate them himself. For each dead man there was one blow and they did not move anymore. Using his power of fire, Jun decided to move away, attracting the attention of as many walking skeletons as possible, and decided to burn them with his aura. After the explosion, there were fewer corpses, but they still attacked. But the man still did not give up. It was as if he had inexhaustible strength. Gradually, Fei Yan and Sun Shuchu began to come to their senses. If this continues, my brother won't last long, said the girl. She and Shuchu silently looked at each other and began to gradually get up. They considered it their duty to help their eldest named brother. But not only the hearts of the Trinity were full of determination. Since Brother Ding gave me this Buddha flower, I can't let him down. Hu thought, looking at the yellow flower in his hand, and having drawn as much air into his lungs as possible, he began to mutter a spell. As soon as the last word left his mouth, thorns appeared on the stem of the flower, piercing the boy's palms. However, the sacrifice was not in vain. At first, the dead looked around in surprise and stopped attacking. And then those defeated by the Buddha flower fell to earth without any signs of an afterlife. Brother Dean, this time I was not a burden to you. The exhausted Hao rejoiced at the victory, losing consciousness, but Fei Yan caught him in time. He used his blood to activate the Buddha flower? What a fool, she said. But the boy's rejection aroused good feelings in her, and taking out a dagger, she cut off the head of the flower that Hu was still holding. Another defeat deprived Zhan of almost all her strength. It can't be. It's impossible. Where did you get such a rare treasure like the Buddha flower? My plan was flawless. How could this happen? Having let go of the cup from his hands, he did not understand. You better leave your speeches for the spiritual department. Fei Yan answered him and hit him on the neck with the edge of her palm, thereby knocking him unconscious. If I understand correctly, this cup is the key to destroying the demon. You look after the traitor here, and I will go after Brother Dean, he ordered, raising the cup. Meanwhile, the dead girl's doll in the lair was desperately rooting for her grandfather, saying to chop the human ingredient into pieces as soon as possible. Under her scream, the bloodthirsty dead man went completely mad, and the only goal he pursued was to hack to death the young man standing in front of him. He swung his sword with all his strength and caused a natural disaster, a strong earthquake. From surprise, our hero began to lose his balance, but managed to stay on his feet among the flaming sparks and flaking stones, and decided to use all 4 of his demon-binding pharmacy talismans. The chain wrapped around the arms and legs of the monster's grandfather, not allowing him to move. Grandfather, we are trapped. He couldn't have lured you into a trap, could he? The wooden figurine of a girl sobbed. Pharmacy will keep the monster for an extra long time, and I don't know when the others will be able to find the key to deal with the demon. Delay will not solve the problem. Baby, do you still have any strength left? He asked hopefully. The answer pleased him beyond words. My friend, let's spare his life. How dare he oppose me when he is only at the master level? The kid was indignant in the spiritual palace of contemplation. He himself was impatient to reveal all his power. Do you think you can lure me into a trap? The bloodthirsty dead man laughed, easily breaking the chains. And in 2 leaps he found himself near our hero, swinging his sword. His face was distorted by a grimace of bloodlust. Come on, use your tail right now. I'm eager to cut it off, he laughed. Xiao slowly raised his eyes to him. Do you really think I can't get rid of you? He asked. Even the monster felt the sudden mental change, forcing him to stop. Do you want to cut off my tail? Let's see if you can handle it. Dean continued to talk. Now the fight between him and the monster played according to his rules, and only he knows how to win this game. He stood silently for a second, watching his grandfather's misunderstanding. And then he ran away so quickly that the bloodthirsty dead man thought he had disappeared, dissolving into thin air. "Hey, where are you looking?" Xiao asked, being right behind the monster. And causing an even stronger earthquake, a huge boulder broke off from a block of stone and threw it at the enemy. An unexpected blow did not kill the selfless grandfather, but he pressed it into the ground and the monster got stuck chest deep in the rocky soil. Then Xiao grabbed him by the head and drove him even harder into the ground. Touching the monster with his hand, he began to become stronger before his eyes. The demonic energy of the little demon was quite tasty, but the demonic energy in your body is unusual. "I would like to taste it," the young man said. For the first time in all his time of existence in the form of a demon, fear lurked in my grandfather's soul. Is this really the energy of the common man? It's terrifying. It's several times stronger than mine, he thought, looking at the man bending before him. Suddenly, a rapid stomp was heard from the entrance to the gorge, and soon Miao Shun appeared with a bowl. "Ding Xiao, catch it!" he shouted and threw him the relic. But our hero, from afar, felt the energy of his granddaughter on the soup cup, and realized that this was the same relic from the coffin. That is, the key to the solution. However, the bloodthirsty dead man with his granddaughter's wooden doll and rushing past him caught the cup. Jun and Xiao's hearts grew cold as they watched what would happen next. "This soup smells so delicious, Bai. Drink it," grandfather said, tilting the empty bowl towards the wooden doll. "They are really obsessed with this relic," summed up our hero. "Maybe deep down they also strive for liberation," Shun suggested. Without noticing it, they hugged each other, as if telling each other in sign language that now they were certainly not enemies. Approaching the coffin, the guys applied the last sealing talismans. "Ashes to ashes, earth to earth, a man of Qi worries about the integrity of the sky. May your soul return to peace." They quietly read the afterlife prayer, after which finally the grandfather and granddaughter left this world. But why was meat soup so important to these two? And why were they ready to sacrifice themselves for each other? Shoubao was lying on a dirty straw bed. The girl did not have the strength to get up and go out into the fresh air, and so she spent all day playing with carved wooden figures of her mother and father. "Grandpa, I feel so bad. I'm dying," the girl wondered, licking her dry lips with her tongue. "What are you talking about? Are you okay?" Grandfather assured her, but he understood that the army of guards was hot on his trail, and therefore he could not do anything about his granddaughter's illness or help her in any way. "Grandfather, why did Mom and Dad go with them? I really miss them and my mother's sop," Bai asked again, unable to even hold her head up. "They left for distant lands and will return soon. Do you want some soup? Grandpa will cook it for you tonight," the elderly man promised. There was no work for him in the city. The only way out he had was to beg. "Get out of here!" A man with greasy hands and a bloody knife shouted, kicking the old man off his feet. "Please, sir, my family has not eaten meat for several months. Give me a piece of pork skin to make soup," the elderly man pleaded. He offered in exchange for his armor and a belt plate for which he could pawn a few coins, and thereby made a huge mistake. "You are a relic of the past, a bastard from a previous dynasty," the butcher guessed. At his cry, the rest of the sellers gathered. "Why haven't the scum of the past dynasty died yet? It is because of you that we now live in poverty. Damn you, you deserve to die," they shouted, sparing no effort in kicking the old man, who protected his head with one hand and with the other held the soup bowl to his chest as best he could, disappointed that he never managed to get the meat. But he did not want to disappoint his granddaughter, whose face had not had a smile for a long time. In the evening, smelling the smell of meat, the girl wearily raised her eyelids. "Bai, here's the soup," the grandfather said, sitting down next to him on the mat, handing the plate to his granddaughter, and at the same time hiding his left hand behind his back. The girl became cheerful before our eyes, and began to greedily swallow the watery liquid with finely chopped onions and pieces of meat. "Grandfather, the soup turned out very tasty," she thanked. "If only it was tasty." The elderly man sighed quietly, and without saying another word, he collapsed to the ground. "Grandfather, what's wrong with you?" Bai was scared, letting go of the plate from her hands and rushing to the only living relative in the world. Suddenly she pulled back when she saw her bloody hand. "Grandfather, your hand, I don't understand," the girl whispered. Soon she realized that he had sacrificed himself for the sake of the soup, and burst into bitter tears. Suddenly the front door creaked. "Sir, here they are. They are here," was heard in the kitchen, and soon several people burst into the peculiar bedroom. "Sir, These are the scum of the previous dynasty. The same butcher from the market pointed to the frightened little girl and the old man lying next to him. We must kill everyone, even children, said the military man, drawing his sword. And without a drop of doubt in his soul, he stabbed the people lying in front of him several times. He was not even afraid of innocent blood on his swords. And screaming sickly, Bai covered her grandfather with her body. Someday I will make you pay in blood, she finally whispered barely audibly when the sword pierced her heart. During the war between the two countries, they were forced out, and the general found himself in this position. Our hero said with tears in his eyes after learning the life story of his grandfather and granddaughter. We only manage ghosts and evil spirits, not military affairs. It's none of our business, Zun answered him, until in front of them, finally, in human form, the grandfather and granddaughter were able to hug each other. It's my fault. I shouldn't have drunk the broth. The girl repented. My poor child. Unfortunately, I could not protect you and your parents. Grandfather answered her, stroking Bai's head. You're right. Then let's fulfill our duty and give them a decent send-off, Dean suggested. Miao agreed. It is difficult to explain love's longing. The soul is deprived of dreams in the kingdom. Sometimes all that remains is to return, they said, taking out wish-fulfillment talismans. And they threw the talismans in front of them, summoning the souls of the departed. Father, daughter, a middle-aged man called out to his relatives. We have returned, announced a pretty woman standing next to him. Finally, after a long time, the family was reunited. Dad, this is a doll that I made. Look, does it look like you? Bao asked, showing a wooden figurine. Yes, it looks like you're doing great. Her father praised her. I prepared delicious meat soup for you, declared the mother, squeezing her daughter in her arms. Before leaving this mortal world forever, the baby turned around. Thank you, big brother. I'm sure you will make the world a better place, she said. With tears still wet on his cheeks, our hero smiled at her. When the family disappeared, an amulet lay in their place. Is this the evil talisman Ling Shu? Xiao asked. This damn spiritual department. We're not done with them yet, Shun cursed, hiding the talisman in his pockets. Look, someone is coming out! People shouted in the square in the city government while watching the portal. Our hero came out first, supporting Miao Shun. Both looked, to put it mildly, not very good. Their appearance immediately became an object of ridicule from the spiritual department. Hey, look at the faces of these two. They must have pissed their pants after being scared by the demons. One man laughed. Brothers, this test was a great success for us. Let's celebrate this. Another one picked him up. At this time, the servants from the corpse department were silently chewing on their lips. Even then, 3 days ago, they foresaw their defeat when the pallbearer joined their team. And now they were even more disgraced. Commander Lin, I already told you that you don't need to be able to move coffins or heal souls. The main thing is strength. Zhang Tangxing recalled sarcastically. Carrying coffins and packing souls is the essence of my corpse department. Your spiritual department only cares about wrongful killings and disregards human ethics. That's what's shameful. Trying not to go too far in insults, Lin Hong answered him. Idiots from the spiritual department was heard very close from the portal, and a second later Feiyan came out of it by her hair, dragging the barely alive Ran behind her, and after her, Shu Chu, carrying the still exhausted Hao in her arms. Come and say hello to your brother, Feiyan said, throwing the traitor into the square. A wave of revival went through the crowd. Why was he captured? Have we really won? The guys from the corpse department asked each other with hope in their voices. It's impossible. Jean is a soul master, and those losers from the corpse department are just students. How could he lose? People from the spiritual department did not believe. Fortunately, we successfully passed the tests. Miao Shun finally announced the winner, and taking our hero's hand, raised his hands up. Brother Miao's team took a burden with them, but they still won against the spiritual department. Do you dare to look down on us from now on? People rejoiced in a light, mocking manner. Hey, Ding Xiao, you're just a bastard, a simple coffin bearer. How dare you treat us like this? It's outrageous. The spiritual department began to be indignant. Under their screams, Jean wanted to say something to them. But Feiyan stepped on his head, not allowing him to open his mouth. He broke the rules, controlled demons and evil spirits, killed his colleagues and seriously wounded a member of the corpse department. And you think that I can't even tie him up? The red-haired girl shouted into the crowd of outraged people. Zhang Tangxing instantly turned pale after her words. What's going on here? Lin Hong immediately demanded details. Since the corpse department has completed the tests, The rest of the squads will definitely suspend their elimination. Jean is a loser. You are good for nothing, he thought, but could not show his true feelings to the public, and then stood silently. Our hero approached the head of the corpse department. Commander Lin, Sister Lu's words are true, and the wounds received by Hu and Brother Shun are proof of this. The spirits in the secret realm trial usually correspond to the strength of the disciples, and logically should be around the 8th level. But the ones our group encountered were at the master level, said the young man. Master? And Hun asked again, not believing his words, not believing the words he heard. The spiritual department hung their heads, realizing their defeat. The strongest of them is a 9th-rank soul disciple, and they killed a master-level evil spirit? They even took on a burden. Are they really that strong? The corpse department asked each other. Now the surviving guys have become heroes for them. Lin Hong was also proud of the participants, but he was also filled with anger. Intervene in the process and kill your colleagues? Is this how the spiritual department treats my corpse department? He tried to get to the bottom of the truth, but Zhang Tianxing was a master of words and knew how to manipulate people. Commander Lin, all the evidence belongs to your cadaver department. Now my department is offended. He turned the situation upside down. Don't be so arrogant, Hun shouted. People lie, but this thing doesn't. Having entered into a showdown between the leaders, our hero came up holding the evil talisman Ling Shu in his hands, and he said that the talisman was left by an evil spirit after his return. This proved that the spiritual department was trying to use the tests to harm the corpse department. This is a unique evil talisman that is used to destroy and attract evil spirits. Based on this material evidence, Mr. Zhang, Lin Hong charged. While John's powers had not yet left him on the verge of death, he decided to somehow shed the truth into the light. It was him, the evil spirit, the young man said hesitantly. We can't let him talk about me, our hero became worried. If he reveals the spiritual department's plans, all our work will be ruined. Tianxing made a decision in his heart at the same time, and he pointed his index and middle fingers at John's forehead. What? But the young man did not expect betrayal on the part of his teacher, and a mask of resentment mixed with horror froze on his face. None of those present even had time to react in any way. He's dead, Ling Hong announced by approaching John and touching his face. And turning to Mr. Zhang, he again accused him of how he could kill and force his own subordinate to remain silent in public. But Tang Xing had an excuse for this too. Xiao Ran was incompetent and vicious, unable to pass even a small test, and unforgivably mutilating his colleagues. My spiritual department punishes students, and it's not your place to interfere in your affairs, right? He answered. And finally, he asked an insidious question like, does Lin Hong really want to incite enmity between the spiritual and corpse departments? Now not only the head of the corpse department, but also the servants could hardly contain their anger. Sergeant Zhang, wait. Sooner or later we will find evidence, Ling Hong promised after leaving the spiritual business. Now that the test is over, we don't need to listen to the nonsense of your cadaver department. Not wanting to continue the conversation, Tang Xing said goodbye in a peculiar way. But then our hero stood in his way. How dare a coffin bearer stop the head of the spiritual department? The man was indignant. I wouldn't dare. But there is one thing I would like to remind you of. You said that you would publicly apologize if anyone from the cadaver department passed the test, but you still haven't kept your promise. I heard that you are a man of your word. You're not lying, are you? Dean asked, smiling. Following him, the area of the city spiritual administration was filled with shouts from the servants of the corpse department. You're sorry. Apologize. Apologize. Well, pallbearer Ding Xiao, I remember you, thought Tianxing, mentally setting himself a reminder to specifically set aside time in order to come up with revenge for the young man. But now he had no choice but to screw his head. You cadaver department students have the courage, and I, Zhang Tangxing, would like to apologize to you today. Let's live a long life together. He asked for forgiveness. And after that he wanted even more, sooner or later, to destroy the corpse department. He was one step ahead of me. It seems like the spiritual department has some kind of hidden conspiracy. Looking after the departing department, our hero was worried. But then someone tapped him on the shoulder. Turning around, the young man saw the servants of the corpse department standing in front of him with friendly smiles on their faces. Ding Xiao, you passed the test. You are now a 9th-level disciple of a protector. You're no longer a pallbearer, Lin Hong announced, holding out the nameplate in his hand. For 8 whole years, every day our hero talked dirty about the moment when he would be given this nameplate. For some time he stood silently with his head hanging, and approaching with trepidation, he took the sign. "Yes, I finally waited for this day," he said out loud. And I thought to myself, after this, I will be able to enter the pavilion of secret treasures, find magic pills, and cure my sister of her illness. The day was approaching evening, and Ding Xiao had just arrived at the secret treasure pavilion. He desperately wanted to see his sister, but he also wanted to bring hope with him in the form of a cure. Previously, he could not enter the pavilion where the treasures and talismans of the corpse department of Chu Jinling's unit were stored because he was a hornbearer. And now, being a defender, he had the right to do so. But the security did not know about our hero's career growth. Only protectors and restorers of souls can enter the building. Defenders can choose only one secret item that they can carry out. The guard reminded the rules. Xiao pulled out the name plaque. After the guards verified his authenticity, she let him in. The building of the Pavilion of Secret Treasures had 4 floors: heavenly, earthly, hidden, and golden. Heavenly was at the top. The higher the floor, the higher the class of treasures stored there, and the higher the rank of the defenders must be to enter there. The young man wandered around the first floor among numerous cabinets, shelves, and boxes. He could only choose one item, and it looked like Xiao would have to work hard to find a higher-level elixir for Lin. He studied many treasures before finally finding something worthwhile. This was the tea rubber that was mentioned in the book about the secrets of the cadaver department. He could ward off evil spirits and remove strange marks. It is quite possible that this medicine will definitely help Lin. But the good news was followed by bad news. "Ding Xiao, things are bad. Hao is dying," Sun Shuchu shouted, rushing into the pavilion from the treasures. Our hero, grabbing the rubber, immediately went to the resting place of the corpse department. By that time the moon had risen in the sky. But Hao's situation got worse and worse. He had several bones broken, and his strength continued to gradually leave him. "I can't do anything with the evil flower and its roots." After conducting an examination, the doctor admitted. "Doctor, is there anything else we can do? We are ready for anything." "I don't despair," asked Xiao. "Better prepare for the worst." The doctor advised heading towards the exit. The news seriously saddened our hero. Hao was like a little brother to him, and the young man loved him with all his heart. "It's our fault that we didn't keep an eye on him and he behaved so recklessly." Miao Shun apologized, and then he received a blow to the jaw from Dean's fist. "Hey, what's wrong with you?" The guys were wary. In response, Xiao chuckled angrily. "In the secret kingdom, you neglected me and Hao for the sake of your selfish interests. Don't I have a score to settle?" Although the exams were over, he still could not forgive the betrayal on the part of his own people. "Sorry, it was urgent and we couldn't do otherwise." The guys apologetically tried to explain their actions. But in the opinion of our hero, each of them had to answer for their words. "Leave all this talk in spirit," he said. He grabbed Shuchu by the clothes and hit him with all his strength, so much so that the furniture toppled over. "Brother Sun, are you okay?" Miao, picking up his comrade, became worried. Drawing out her sword, Fei Yan stood up to defend them, shutting them out with her. "Ding Xiao, calm down," she prayed. "When I and Hao suffered, why didn't you ask yourself to calm down?" Our hero objected to her, trying to teach her a lesson too. Fei Yan really hoped that she had not made friends with Xiao. But since he now posed a danger to her, she was ready to use entry and weapons. But the young man broke it on the fly. He grabbed the broken blade of the sword with his bare hands and broke it in half. After which he put a longer piece of blade to the girl's throat. "If I were not as strong as you, then now I would have suffered again," he said, and did not plan to end there. "Dean, Brother Dean," a weakened boy's voice was heard. "Brother Ho, you're awake!" Instantly cooling down and leaving the guys, he rushed to Xiao's bed. "Sister Lu saved me, now we are even," said the boy. "Thank you," blushing, thanking Fei Yan. "We ourselves are to blame for everything. Please forgive us. No matter how difficult it is, we will find a way to save Ho." Jun swore, almost kneeling, but Dean tisked at them, forcing them to quiet down. "If everything is in order with Hao, then the case will be written off. But if anything happens to him, I will make you pay with your lives." He made a decision, and having said goodbye again to the named younger brother, who had fallen into a fainting state, our hero began to look for ways to save his life. Lin Hong told him that he had never encountered cases of Buddha flower parasitism, but advised him to go to the library of the cadaver department and look for something there. The young man looked through all the entries in the library, and there was not a single entry on how to cope with the parasitism of the Buddha flower. And now, slightly hopeful, he went home. Finally, he entered his painfully familiar yard. "I'm back," he shouted tiredly into the silence of the night. But I never expected to see, instead of one person, two people waiting for him. "Brother, you're finally back. Look who came to us." Lin was delighted, holding some kind of package in her hands. Just looking into the eyes of the girl standing in front of him, Dean remembered his old friend. Or rather, her words about the fact that she will definitely surpass him. Well, times change. She became the best student at the academy, and I just reached the 9th grade. And she, as promised, surpassed me. The young man thought sadly. "Ding Xiao, long time no see." "How are you?" the girl greeted. "Brother, look, Sister Bai brought us delicious food." Lin interjected into the conversation, pointing at the package. "Yes, long time no see back," Xiao greeted. "Lin, I need to discuss something with your brother. Why don't you go inside and relax?" Bai turned to the girl. Delighted with the gift, Lin hurried into the house to set dinner. I saw the method of treating Buddha flower parasitism from an ancient book in the Yu family at the academy. The medicine requires 2 rare herbs, the heart of the demon and the herb of the 8 spirits of the earth, the girl said. To say that our heroes were surprised that she knew from nowhere that he was looking for a cure for the Buddha flower is to say nothing. But the girl never ceased to amaze. It turned out she had the means to get the first herb. The second one was rumored to be in Donghuan. Then she took out a specially combed bone from her pocket, which, according to her, was supposed to indicate the exact location. "Thank you, of course, but you didn't come here to help me, right?" Xiao guessed. "To be honest, I am investigating the incident with the 6-eyed blood spider," admitted the daughter of the mayor of the city. "I can't believe that someone else is investigating what happened that day and that someone is Bai Shi." Our hero became worried, but didn't show it. "Ding Xiao, tell me what happened that day." The girl asked an exciting question. "You should check the archives of that day. A 6-eyed blood spider attacked me and my 2 brothers. I was saved by an unknown master." The young man recounted his testimony word for word. He didn't know who was behind the whole investigation, but he felt that if he told the truth, he would be treated like evil spirits. What does he look like? What kind of spirit does he have? What is his rank? What secret techniques did he use? Questions immediately rained down on him as if from a bag. Bai Si didn't hope for anything in particular, but she still had to check. "Did he tell you anything?" Coming closer and looking the young man straight in the eyes, she continued to question Shi. Her interrogation even made Dean feel a little sick. Even his secretary didn't exhaust him with questions like that. "Well, I vaguely saw him in a black and gold robe with a bone hairpin on his head and a strange tattoo on his face. That's what he looked like. But I was just a pallbearer at the time, so I didn't know anything about the rank or the secret technique," Xiao said. He understood that if he continued to look into the girl's eyes, he would definitely say something was wrong, and therefore he quickly turned away, took a wand, and began to draw this unknown master. When his grandfather was still alive, he told him about the secret organization Tiandao. The information brought about them could dispel suspicions about him. And by the way, he chose the right path of lies. Tiandao immediately came to the girl's mind. It may be them, but they disappeared 20 years ago. Why are they acting again? She thought, and she gently twitched her left hand. "Head, did you hear everything?" she asked, and in front of the astonished Xiao, a paper crane flew out of her sleeve. "Yes, I understand. There are no more questions," answered the crane. Our hero was glad that he didn't say anything unnecessary because there are really forces behind Bai Shi that are listening to everything. "Okay, I need to go back to the academy." The girl finished the conversation, throwing the paper crane back into her sleeve. "What about the investigation?" Dean asked. "It's none of your business. You should go to Donghuan to find a cure and save a person. Besides, there have been changes in Donghuan recently, and this pendant can help you," Bai answered. And she held out a palm-sized polished stone on which various patterns were engraved. "Thank you." Our hero thanked him, accepting the amulet. When handing over the little thing, their hands touched, and the young man was surprised. "Why are your hands so cold?" Taken aback, Bai blushed. "Maybe it's because the night is cold," she suggested, and turning sharply 180 degrees, she hurried to the exit. But she stopped without going far. "It will take about a month for the flower to completely take possession of the boy. Find the right herb as soon as possible, and I'll take care of the rest," she promised. But she was glad to see her old acquaintance. "Well, Thank you. Our hero thanked again. He didn't think that Bai Si would trust him, but to save his life, he must hide the truth. Sister leaves. Lin asked her brother, who was entering the house, disappointed. Yes, she urgently needed to return to the academy, Xiao explained, and he pulled out tea rubber, which should slow down the growth of the second person, explaining that he found it in the secret treasure pavilion of the corpse department. Pavilion of secret treasures? Isn't this a place where only protectors and restorers of souls can enter? Are you no longer a pallbearer? The girl exclaimed. Yes, now I'm a defender, our hero confirmed. And having untied the ribbon from my sister's hair, I decided to try out a new medicine. He gently touched the back of his head with his fingers. Now, after so many years of suffering, everything is finally getting better. When I return from Donghuang, I will search all the treasures of the world to cure your illness, Xiao promised. Donghuan? It's so far away. The girl was surprised, but her brother only asked her to change the bandage again in the morning. You just returned, but you're leaving again. Lin became sad. Sorry, but Brother Hu is sick, and I have to find herbs to cure him. Don't worry, I'm different, and everything will be fine with me. The young man reassured her, holding her tightly in his arms. Take care of yourself while I'm gone. And if there is any problem, go to the department and find Chief Lin Hong, our hero instructed before disappearing into the darkness of the night. Got it. Come back soon, Lin promised, and she quickly closed the doors behind him so as not to feel the growing loneliness. Suddenly pain pierced her body. Why did it suddenly hurt so much? I think it's because of the medicine my brother put on me. We must be patient, the girl thought, rubbing the back of her head. Soon our hero arrived at the building of the spiritual department. This is a place of peace and tranquility, where all known and unknown corpses will be sent to the department's burial hall, where they will then be escorted to their homes by students of the corpse department, and back to their hometown. Their students will accompany them. Lin Hong wandered between the coffins, watching the others work. I'm glad to meet you, Commander Lin, Xiao greeted. I heard from Bai Shi that you are going to Donghuan in search of the 8 spirits of the earth herb, and are also going to take on the mission of delivering coffins, right? The commander decided to check the rumors, and if this is indeed the case, then he has already reserved 1 dead man for the young man. The spirit of this corpse was a 5-eyed cuttlefish. Our hero only had to avoid water, and the risk that the corpse would be cursed would not be great. More importantly, the client is a wealthy businessman, and the reward is much higher than for regular assignments. And since Lin is not in very good health, Xiao's money is very necessary. The young man thanked for the efforts done. Since you have become a protector, do you need to look for a pallbearer and several assistants? The ones you worked with recently were very good. Mr. Lin suggested. No, I can handle it alone. The young man refused, because he could not trust anyone else. The commander sighed and pulled out a large, sharply sharpened nail. Let me lend you this thing that can destroy any master-level demon, he asked. This wooden nail is carved from ancient wood. The value of 1 such nail is equal to the value of the entire property of the defender. Is Commander Lin ready to report it to me? Our hero was surprised, but do not neglect the favor. After which, he shouldered the coffin and set off. On the 6th day, the sky is cleared, and therefore the chance of evil spirits arising is small. However, it was already too late, and they had to find a place to stay for the night. Fortunately, on the way he came across a lonely house. Xiao knocked. What's the matter? Asked a sleepy head popping out from behind the door. I'm from Shenzhen's pipe department here on a mission. Do you have a place where I can stay for the night? Asked the young man. From the cadaver department? How can I let you stay here for the night with what you're carrying on your back? What if something happens? The owner became worried. You see, I carry this coffin so easily because there is no one in it. Besides, I am a protector. Even if ghosts appear here, I can handle them. Our hero lied, holding out a few coins. Since there were no demons in the corpse, it was better to say so than to cause unnecessary panic. Why didn't you say it before? Of course, come in. Seeing the money, the owner's face changed. His family was quite small, he and his father, so the house corresponded to their marital status. For this reason, the owner was able to allocate only 1 room, and, since it was very dirty, he offered to clean it up. The owner was certainly followed by his father. He was quite old, but something about this old man annoyed our hero. Just what? However, the young man decided to refuse the help of the owner of the house, and looking after the leaving man, he asked himself to be careful, because he was in a very strange place. Having removed the cobwebs from the corners and wiped the floor, before going to bed, the young man decided to do one more equally important thing. Since he had reached the 9th level of Soul Disciple in the secret realm, now it was time for him to try to break through to the master. And closing his eyes, he moved to his spiritual palace of contemplation. Baby, the time has come. Our hero greeted the form, pulling out a bottle of spiritual dust and pouring it on it. Gradually, the golden talismans began to smolder and peel off. Less and less. Are they finally disappearing? Come on, baby, you're so close. Jiao was happy. Suddenly his ears caught a strange noise, and from all sides magical chains reached towards the form. The young man desperately tried to break the chains with his hands, but the chains only tightened. Our hero could not find a place for himself due to the emotions raging in him. Why are they trying to stop me again? I, Ding Xiao, just want to gain strength to survive in this cruel world. Who are you to stop me? He shouted, getting into a fighting stance. But his attack was inconsolable. A talisman in the form of a magical palm appeared right in front of him, which did not allow him to approach the form, and moreover, returned his consciousness to the real world. The young man's heart was beating wildly in his temples, and he could not regain his breath. He did not understand where those chains came from, and why they prevented him from developing his spiritual phase of the soul. And why did they resist so fiercely that even his clothes were torn? Master, forgive me. The power of the golden talisman is too strong. The kid apologized. It's okay, we'll try another time. Remember, you are my spiritual phase. If I don't give up, then you don't give up either, our hero reminded him. Meanwhile, the owner of the house knocked on the door. Since his family had prepared food, he suggested that everyone should have dinner together. Xiao decided not to refuse. Besides, he and the baby waited for 8 whole years, so there's no need to rush now. This dish is not so fatty and bland. Sorry for that, said the owner, pointing to a bowl of rice with watery broth. It's okay, I'm very pleased that I can eat it. Our hero thanked, taking up the bamboo sticks with pleasure. However, the father of the owner of the house was not so delighted with the food. I'm over it. I want to eat noodles and meat, he demanded. You can't eat it, I simply don't have it, his son reassured him. After watching the family showdown, our hero offered to buy meat for them tomorrow morning, but the old man did not listen to him. He saw several large beetles moving on the ground, and maddened, he rushed towards them. Meat, he said. His son and his guest jumped up from their chairs, trying to reason with the old man, but did not have time. The old man gladly threw a couple of beetles into his mouth and began to chew, while saying how delicious they were. Moreover, he picked up a couple of other beetles and invited the guys to try them. Come on, go ahead and try it. Extend your hand with the beetle, he addressed our hero. Now the young man realized what he didn't like in this house. This old man was possessed by a heavenly spirit, and he took out the talisman of removing the disguise and threw it at the old man. The flames immediately consumed the elderly man, causing enormous pain. Father, the owner cried out, trying to rush to his father to help. Don't approach, look carefully. Xiao stopped him. After a couple of minutes, the fire began to die out, and soon in the place of the old man, baring his teeth, stood a damned raccoon. It's a demon! The owner was horrified. Unlike him, the night guest was not at a loss. Do you want to run away? But can you? He wondered, cutting the evil heavenly spirit in half in physical form. Father! The man rushed to the raccoon, bursting into tears. He still could not get used to the idea that his loved one had been dead for several days. I am very sorry for your loss. His organs and memory were eaten by a raccoon. Watching the sobs, the young man sympathized, and also reproached himself for the fact that if he had arrived earlier, the man could still have been saved. Suddenly, he was attracted by the esophagus of an animal in which the remains of purple cabbage could be seen. If he remembered correctly, only the people from Donghuang ate these vegetables. Actually, he asked this question to the owner of the house. It turned out that a few days ago a play was shown in Dunuhuang, and the son and father went there. It seems that the raccoon first lived in Dunuhuang and possessed the old man while he was watching a play. But the raccoon loves noisy places most of all. Why would he hide in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere? Maybe there is something in Donghuang that he is afraid of? The young man suggested. After what happened, he could no longer waste time. With the words, "The dead go away, but we must live on." He pulled out a small tied bag with several coins and placed it in front of the sobbing man. She should go to Donghuan as quickly as possible to find grass. Several hours passed, and our hero still walked without stopping. A sudden blinding sunlight at the edge of the forest greeted the young man, and in front of him, clearly visible among the sandy mountains, was Dong Huang. "Hey, you're the man who carries the coffin. You're not welcome here. Hurry up and leave." Seeing a young man with a coffin on his back, the guards at the city gate objected. "Excuse me, I am the defender of the corpse department. I arrived to carry out a mission in Donghuan," Xiao explained, taking out the nameplate. "Okay, come in, but don't run into trouble," the security advised, stepping aside and opening the gate. And as soon as the young man passed, they began to whisper before him. It seemed strange to them that another pallbearer had arrived in the city. The young man walked briskly for the first minutes, but soon stopped. It seemed very strange to him that the streets were so quiet. However, first he had to take the coffin to its destination, and therefore he pulled out a note on which the exact address was written. Walking from street to street, he heard unusual singing. "Yes, you can steal the shackles in the sky. The body is tied with 5 senses and 8 touches. Don't come home. Don't come back to us," several voices sang. Coming closer, Xiao saw a small group of people in black cloaks hiding from the sun in the shadow of a house. But they all worshipped 3 people. They were the ones who sang and danced, but their faces were hidden by masks. "Since ancient times the heavenly phase is born, and the master shows his strength," said the man with the face of a rooster, and without choosing, touched the forehead of a woman with his index finger. Thank you, Master Jai," the woman began to thank. Xiao watched the procession with surprise, and suggested that perhaps this was an amazing local custom. "No, this is an evil spirit." The kid from the spiritual palace of contemplation objected to him. He also said that the energy of evil spirits did not come from those 3 eccentrics in the center, but hovered everywhere, and the smell was simply disgusting. Relaxing slightly, Xiao also felt it. Suddenly someone called out to him and our hero got a little scared. "Hey, pallbearer, is that you, Ding Xiao?" a man running up asked him. There was still one guy and a girl standing behind him. All 3 wore the cadaver department uniform. "Yes, that's true. May I know your name?" Our hero confirmed his identity. "Yang Shu. You can just call him Yang. You don't have to be so honorable. It just so happens that I am also here on a mission, and Commander Lin asked me to take care of you," the man explained. It turned out that the pretty girl's name was Fang Hai, and the guy's name was Lan Zhou. Both of them were level 8 defenders. "What is this strange custom that we have witnessed?" our hero asked. Shu rolled his eyes, and he said that those 3 eccentrics wear animal masks, and they are called Genji. Basically, they only brainwashed people into believing in a certain grandfather Master Ji in order to make money. But Xiao still didn't understand. If it's a cult, then why doesn't the city government get rid of it? Donghuang is so full of stuff that the government doesn't care. Besides, they're just a bunch of crippled kids. They can't cause any trouble. But if they are like you and have power, then this will become a big problem, Shu explained. Dean looked carefully at the group of people and mentally agreed with him. "Well, the mission is more important. The Li family you should bring the body to is a big family in Donghuan. They have done us a lot of favors. I'll take you there. Let's take a detour and avoid these cultists," Yang suggested. "Strange religion and evil energy everywhere. I'm afraid Donghuan's problems are more serious than I thought. I need to finish delivering the coffin and find a cure to save Hu," Xiao thought as he left the cultists behind. But his appearance did not go unnoticed. The man in the rooster mask wanted to chat with him, but the young man moved too far away. Finally, the defenders found the right address. "Gentlemen, we were waiting for you." The servant kindly greeted the guests as they walked inside. "Master Yang, glad you arrived. Sorry, I'm not well enough to see you in person. Where is my son? Call me to take a look." The owner of the house, Li Zhen, asked when he came out. At first, our hero refused him for the reason that there might be evil in the corpse. "It's okay. Nothing will happen as long as I'm here," Ian assured him. And at his order, the servants who approached began to open the coffin. At the sight of the dead heir, the old man's eyes filled with tears, and out of emotion he began to sob at the coffin, so much so that he had to hold on to him so that he would not fall. "Why haven't you thought about what you could do in the future? Alas, I have always had few women, and after a long time a pearl was born, but he still ended up like this. This is a curse. It seems that God wants my race to become extinct," said the old man. "Mr. Li, we do not yet have a favorable date for the funeral. If we bury the body before the evil spirits leave, it will cause trouble." Ian waited until the elderly man calmed down. Having heard him, Zhen then ordered to put the body in the backyard and bury it later, and also prepare good rooms for guests. "Yes," the servants answered, bowing their heads, and they asked our guys to follow them, leaving Mr. Lee alone in the empty living room. Have we finally come to this? The old man said thoughtfully when everyone left. First, however, a funeral procession had to be held. Cover up the wretchedness of life, realize the cyclical nature. The gods go to the 9 heavens to save us. Funeral singing was heard in the courtyard of the Lee family house. These 3 shamans sang and danced near the closed coffin, burning incense in the daylight of lit candles. Just in case, the defenders were present nearby to come to the rescue at any time. Have you heard about the grass of the 8 spirits of the earth? Our hero asked a question casually. I have several techniques that can help you find the exact location. But now that Donghuan is in turmoil, the evil spirits will affect the effect of the technique. When the commotion subsides, I may be able to help. Yang answered. What is going on here? Xiao asked for an explanation. The guys immediately became gloomy. It's a long story. Half a month ago, strange things began to happen. Local residents were constantly losing something in their homes in unimaginable ways. At first it was just pots and pans, then livestock, and then people began to disappear. The spiritual department suspects that it is an evil spirit, so we are here to investigate. I'm already conducting an investigation with 2 of my colleagues, but I haven't found anything, said Ian. After listening to him, our hero was slightly surprised. The 3 of them are levels 7 and 8, but even after half a month they don't have any idea what's going on. How can I help? Xiao offered his help. You're level 9 anyway, so you don't need to interfere in this. We've already come up with one way. But about the grass, you'll have to think for yourself for a while. Shu refused. Suddenly a terrifying roar filled the courtyard. Rising from the grave, painfully squeezing the shamans by the throats, stood the dead Li Dai. Save me. Help, the shamans prayed. It was you who killed me. Pay for this with your life, the dead man repeated, trying to send the victims to the next world. Yang was the first to get his bearings. Hi, Joe, he shouted, ringing a handheld magic bell, and they surrounded the dead man. The master has returned. Let the soul dissipate and the 4 clouds create a formation, Lan Zhou and Fang Hai said while Yang continued to ring the bell. Another moment and the dead man was bound by magical chains, but his tongue was loose. It's all over with you. You will all be eaten, he laughed. However, the defenders did not have time to listen to his nonsense, and as soon as the sealing talisman touched the forehead of the corpse, which during life bore the name Li Dai, it fell and stopped showing any signs of life. Yang Shu was angry and tried not to show it. Place new talismans on it, and don't even think about screwing things up again before the burial. None of this would have happened if the corpse hadn't been touched in broad daylight, and this bunch of losers ruined everything. Let the professionals handle this. He gave orders, nodding towards the shamans. Will we all be eaten? What did he mean? Our hero didn't understand. It's just a spirit that has taken possession of him. Don't dwell on it. Talismans will not fall off from rain or wind. Do not touch or move the coffin until burial. If he gets up again, you might die. Having barely answered his colleague, Ian again began to give advice. The shamans bowed down and thanked him. We have to go south on business, so I'll leave you. Don't mess with Genji or you'll get yourself into trouble, Ian finally advised. Now that the delivery of the coffin is finished, we must hurry up and find some grass. You must hold out, thought our hero, looking after the departing defenders, and he went in search. No matter who he asked, no one had ever heard of the 8 earth spirits' grass. But Xiao did not give up. He began knocking on every house in hopes of finding a clue. Many doors closed in front of his nose before the young man grew tired. Even the amulet given to Bai Si, no matter how hard he tried, did not react to the location. On one of the streets of the city, an old woman was walking towards him. Having caught up with our hero, she asked why his head does not have the first wisdom. Granny, what is the first wisdom? Xiao didn't understand her. This is a thing like mine, donated by half-immortals. With it, Grandpa can bless you, the old woman explained, pointing her finger at the red dot on her forehead. The young man immediately thought of those 3 morning eccentrics with dances and songs. Grandma, I'm looking for something. I haven't had the opportunity to meet half-immortals yet, he answered. Young man, you are also looking for the herbs of the 8 spirits of the earth? The elderly woman asked the question again, narrowing her eyes. From such insight, our hero was slightly confused, and just in case, he clutched the hilt of his sword tightly behind his back. Half an hour ago, 3 young men dressed the same as you asked about this, the old woman said without noticing the wariness. After her words, Xiao thought about it. Perhaps this is a group led by Miao Shun? Meanwhile, the old woman came closer and took his hand. The grass of the 8 spirits of the earth is in the hands of the semi-immortals in the temple of the city god. I like you. That's why I'm telling you. But I didn't say anything to those 3 young people. She smiled conspiratorially. Do these semi-immortals have grass? Xiao asked, trying not to rudely take his hand away. But the old woman decided to end the conversation by passing by and knocking on the door of the house. Open the door. The half-immortals will bestow blessings, she said the password. Watching her, our hero could not understand whether the appearance of the old woman at the right moment was an accident or not. But it is still difficult to find a solution, and it seems that in any case, he should go to the temple of the city god. He didn't have to ask passers-by for a long time about the location of the temple. Unlike the grass, everyone knew the way to it. Once people regularly went to the temple, but now only cracked statues, faded curtains, and rickety mosaics on the ceiling reminded of its former greatness. Having entered the temple, Xiao decided to examine it, and with each step, he went further and further inside. Finally, Grandpa has arrived, a voice said out of nowhere. Our hero was scared, not because he allegedly did not wield a sword, but because he did not feel the human presence in the temple. Turning around, he saw 3 Genji hiding behind the ruins of the statue. One had a mask with a fox, another with a rooster, and acted as the leader of the company, and the third had a bull. Master Grandfather Ji, we have been waiting for you. Now that you're here, you can't leave, they said in unison. It seemed as if they had been waiting for this meeting for a very long time. What kind of nonsense are they talking about? What kind of master am I, Grandpa Ji? Our hero did not understand, and he decided to attack them with the aura-binding talisman. But all 3 talismans burned out on the fly. Master Grandpa Ji, your tricks are useless. This won't work. It's because Grandpa has brain problems. The bull mask laughed. Ding Xiao stopped indecisively. He didn't understand at all what was happening and didn't know how to proceed. Either run away or attack again. And he decided to choose a peaceful path, asking what the trio needed from him. Don't worry, we won't harm you. We just want to hear something from you. The Genji responded in unison, surrounding the youth from all sides. So what do they want from me? Thought Xiao. Your life! The rooster mask seemed to read his thoughts, and with cries for Xiao to die, they rushed to him. Then the young man took out the talisman of speed and activated it at the very last moment, barely escaping from their tenacious hands. Master! Why are you running away? What are you trying to achieve? The fox mask shouted after him. Suddenly Xiao stopped, turned around and cut the man in the fox mask with his sword. Only instead of blood, he turned into a stone body. Is Master Jai really such a weakling? He just runs away. The other 2 mocked, rolling up my sleeves, and they began to attack together. But the effect of the speed talisman had not yet worn off, and Xiao slipped away from them again. What a pathetic grandfather Jai is, summed up the bull mask. Suddenly our hero became angry, and with the help of talismans he baked it. But the bull did not stop talking, saying that the fact that the young man was angry was very good. But our hero was no longer just angry, but angry, like grizzlies awakened in winter during hibernation. And with all his might he hit the bull in the face, which had just begun to destroy the formation. Like the fox, the bull also turned out to be made of stone. Suddenly Dean's mind brightened. Why did my phasic energy in my body suddenly become so raging and a little uncontrollable? Baby, are you there? What's happening? He didn't understand, but the baby was silent. But that was not all. Another head in the form of a wolf grew from the rooster's neck. Come on, let's continue to fight. The more angry you are, the more we will rejoice, provoked the mutant of our hero. The young man realized that this was far from the end, and that hour, maddened, rushed at him with bare hands full of spiritual strength. And he hit the wolf's head with a flourish, inwardly wondering, why is he so angry? From the moment you crossed the threshold of the temple, you fell under our secret spell from which it is impossible to tear yourself away. You can't leave us, Genji laughed. Their last words echoed through the consciousness of our hero. You won't be able to leave us. You can't leave us. You can't leave us. Xiao grabbed his head with his hands, trying to get the annoying voice out of his head. But he repeated his words over and over again, like a jammed record in a tape recorder. Out of anger and hopelessness, the young man began to scream. But gradually, the Genji's voice began to displace another. Ding Xiao, wake up! Wake up! Someone called out to him. Finally, as if waking up from a bad dream, our hero opened his eyes. He was lying on Miao Shun's lap, and Liu Feiyan and Sun Shuchu were standing nearby. Brother Dean, are you okay? Shun was worried. Gradually, Xiao began to realize that it was quite possible that everything he saw was an illusion. Suddenly a lump came to his throat, and he spat out several lumps of ground grass. "What is this? What's happened?" Xiao asked, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. "We saw a group of strange people rushing towards this place and followed them. When we arrived at the temple, we saw that you were frozen in place, like a lost soul, and eccentrics were dancing around you and screaming spells. We sent them away when we felt something was wrong," said Feiyan. Then Zuchu inquired about Dean's well-being, but he did not feel any unusual changes in his body. While communicating with the guys, his gaze accidentally fell behind them, and in the doorway to the temple, he saw 3 familiar silhouettes. Men in masks of a rooster, fox and bull stood as if they had not done anything strange until that moment. "Answer me, why did you cast an illusion on me?" Xiao immediately ran up to them. "We are here to help Master Ji fulfill his wish. Don't you need the 8 Earth Spirit Grass?" The fox mask answered him. "How do you know about this?" Grabbing the man by the clothes, our hero demanded an explanation. Then the man answered him that Master Grandfather Ji told them so. "Weren't you the one who called me Master Grandfather Ji? How many more grandfathers like this are there?" Remembering the illusion, the young man continued to interrogate. "The abandoned house of the Jiao family in the east of the city. You will find out about it when you go there." The man in the fox mask avoided answering. "Is the grass there?" Dean asked. Genji waved his head from side to side, showing with all his appearance that he knew nothing about the location of the grass. "Then why do you say that I need to go there if I want to get grass?" Now squeezing his neck with both hands, our hero shouted. The answer was still the same, because Grandfather Ji said so. A storm of indignation raged in the soul of the young man. Miaojin hugged him by the shoulders, dragging him along. "It's just a bunch of crazy people. Don't give in to their words. We will find a way to find the grass ourselves," he reassured him. Finally, Xiao's fingers unclenched. He himself didn't understand why he became so irritable because of these cultists. In an illusion, they said that he had been exposed. But what? Spiritual phase? The moon rose to the celestial pedestal, and our hero and the rest of the Zivshichiki just crossed the threshold of the abandoned house of the Jiao family. Going inside, Feiyan took out the detection amulet and watched his reaction. Afterwards, she stated that there were no signs of living people around. This place could be a trap or a trap. "It's too late to leave. Don't go back on your words to help," Xiao reminded. "We ourselves are to blame for what happened. Now we just want to buy the blame and cure Hao," Feiyan answered, hiding her eyes. "We will prove it with our actions. Please trust us," Shun continued. "Okay," Dean summed up. Now his heart had calmed down a little, and the guys themselves did not arouse suspicion. But the small, ugly statue on the chair in the corner of the room, yes. Noticing Xiao's gaze on itself, the statue began to giggle disgustingly, and then her mouth opened slightly. First the beak appeared, and then the head of the rooster came out. Having seen such a vision, our hero staggered and tried to step back. "What does it produce?" Sun became worried, grabbing him and Zuchu by the arms. "What? You didn't see? The statue's head has turned into a chicken head," Xiao babbled, pointing his finger at the chair. The shocked guys began to look around, not understanding where the chicken heads could have come from in the abandoned house. This is just another illusion. What are these cultists up to? Our hero tried to calm himself down. Just in case, Sun suggested that he rest, saying that this was precisely the reason for the hallucinations. "Everything is in order. Let's continue the investigation. This is a strange place. Be careful," Xiao warned. Meanwhile, Sun Shuchu became interested in the statue. "This little thing looks very unusual, but who would put it in the house of a normal person?" he thought out loud. And some kind of brown liquid dripped from the 100-stone monster into a plate placed under her mouth in her hands. And suddenly, before Suchu's eyes, she began to grow larger. A little more and the liquid overflowed the container, dousing everyone from head to toe. "Let's get out of here quickly!" our hero shouted, heading out. Feiyan was the first to run up to the door, and the door slammed right next to her nose. They were trapped. Meanwhile, the brown slurry began to take on peculiar shapes in the form of huge mouths with tongues, from which hands began to emerge. They grabbed the guys by the legs, trying to drag them to them. "What is this anyway?" Shun shouted, using the ball to cut his hands. But Xiao was not at a loss. He pulled out a thunder talisman that drives out evil, and he immediately activated it, after which the brown slurry began to recede under the influence of magical lightning. Trying to regain their breath, the guys watched as their formless enemy retreated back. "What the hell is this? If there were ordinary people here, I'm afraid he would swallow them." Shun was indignant. Boss, do you still remember the disappearance of people in Donghuan? Could this thing be the culprit? Cultists must have something to do with this, our hero suggested. While they were talking, the brown sludge began to attack with renewed vigor. Now, instead of hands, monsters crawled out of her mouth. Suchu was horrified. Is this demon really spewing out other demons? Suddenly, the amulet given to Bai Shi in Ding's pocket began to pulse. The young man waved his hand in different directions, and the stone reacted most of all towards the demon. Is the grass I need there? He was surprised. But first they had to deal with the revived monsters heading towards them. Brother Dean, we will cover you, and you go and look for grass. Don't worry, leave it to us, Miao Shun ordered, standing in the combat table. We are in harmony with each other. Merge with me, possessed by the spirit. He spoke to Suchu, summoning his spiritual forms, and they immediately rushed forward along with Feiyan, who had drawn her sword, opening the way and covering our hero, which activated the amulet of speed and, as soon as the path was cleared, jumped straight into the demon's mouth. The monsters wanted to intercept him, but thanks to the other defenders they did not succeed. It seemed as if the demon itself was eager to devour Xiao, and as soon as the young man sank into the abdominal darkness, the teeth behind him tightly closed. Our hero guessed what was in the stomach of the evil demon. However, due to the darkness, he could not see anything and used the talisman of light. After some time of searching, he saw a faint flickering in the distance on the horizon. Coming closer, he saw a small plant, about 20 centimeters in height. It had no color, as if it were ghostly. Grass of the 8 spirits of the earth? Great, Hao will now be saved. Xiao rejoiced and headed towards the plants. And now that very anxious, long-awaited moment when he had to pick the plant, and a click happened. And he found himself at the gate of his house looking into the yard. The young man did not understand why he returned home. And why does his sister sit facing the growing tree in the yard and smack her lips with relish, saying how delicious this is? Tench, our hero called out to his sister. Fear began to creep into his soul, because the girl was doing something incomprehensible. Unlike him, she was having fun. Brother, will you have dinner with me? She suggested, turning to him and handing him a still living rooster. At the same time, the girl did not forget to lick her lips with her tongue. But suddenly the terrible dream ended. Brother, you're awake. Shuchu was delighted. Are you okay? Shun was worried. What happened? Why am I here? Am I hallucinating again? Xiao shouted, jumping out of bed. Looking around, he realized that it was already the morning of the next day, and he was in Mr. Li's mansion. Don't be nervous. You jumped into the mouth, and then jumped out and cut the bronze statue into 2 parts with your sword. Immediately after this, we saw a wave of demonic energy pour into you, and then you lost consciousness. Shuchu recalled the events of the past. Dean tensed, thinking intently. He was angry, because most likely it was again the tricks of those cultists, and decided to find them to settle the score. His wish was fulfilled as soon as he uttered the last word. Bach! 3 men in masks of a rooster, a bull and a fox fell in front of him at his feet. We have them. I leave it up to you to decide how to interrogate them. Don't forget to give kicks in the ass, Feiyan counted down. Seeing familiar faces, our hero instantly became furious. You like to play with me, right? Do you like teasing me? He shouted and kicked the rooster sitting in front of him in the jaw with his foot. Who are you, sir? We don't know you, the man babbled, crawling back. Without the mask, he was quite ugly and unattractive. Weren't you the one who told me that I am your master grandfather Jai? Playing dumb again? Xiao loomed menacingly. I really don't know you. The man swore and swore. Well, then I'll make you remember, said our hero, and taking out his sword, cut the man's body in half. Having committed murder, the young man's conscience did not give a voice. He did not feel sorry for this man. If you want to stay alive, then explain, our hero ordered, wiping the sword on the hem of the clothes of a fresh corpse. Master, we will explain everything. We will explain, the other 2 swore, taking off their masks. The one who wore the image of a bull had huge scars on his face, and the one hiding under the mask of a fox had a face strewn with warts. According to their words, the evil spirit has 8 hearts and 8 mouths. 4 hearts are located outside the stomach, 4 inside. The one that Xiao cut last night is only one of the hearts. Without it, the demon can still exist as long as the 4 hearts outside are destroyed. The demon will not be able to escape, and then it may be possible to open the demon's belly and get the spiritual herb. After listening to them, our hero demanded that they swear that they were telling him the correct information. The truth is true. Of course it's true. This is the same demon that eats people in Donghuan. They swore with some inhumanly lively sparkle in their eyes, and they told the most important desire of this demon. In fact, more than anything, he wants to eat the Genji master. Speak up, which means he wants to eat me. Putting the sword to the throat of the man with warts, Xiao continued to interrogate. Calm down, my lord. The demon wants to eat you because you are different from others. I'm afraid only you know how you are different. The men said, interrupting each other. Our hero suggested that perhaps this was due to his spirit form, and he ordered the Genji to take him to the remaining hearts. No problem, sir. You are so kind. The more this demon eats, the harder it is to deal with. If we don't stop it, it will consume all of Donghuan. If you kill the demon, you will save the people of Donghuan. The man with warts thanked him as he covered the body of the deceased with a sheet. Are you going to just wrap him in a sheet and take him away? Don't you need to calm his soul? Xu Chu asked, blocking the passage to him. Mister, don't worry. Genji members are stillborn and useless. They do no harm. Please come with us, the men said as they walked around the defender. Our hero decided to follow them, because now the likelihood that they would dare to do any tricks is zero. The rest unquestioningly obeyed his decision, and in a company of 6 people, they all headed towards the exit from Mr. Li's mansion, around which exactly at this time Yang Shu, Fang Hai, and Lanzhou were making a tour. Ding Xiao, you have finally woken up. Yang was delighted when he saw our hero. Thanks for your concern, brother. I'm fine now. Xiao thanked him. Yang nodded towards the Genji, as if asking how he managed to contact these cultists. Brother, this is a long story. They said that they had a way to identify the demon who was responsible for the disappearance of people in Donghuang, and the spiritual herb was in the demon's stomach. Our hero explained. Spiritual grass in the demon's stomach? Isn't this nonsense? Ian rolled his eyes. Please don't be angry. Everything we said is true. The grass of the 8 spirits of the earth only grows inside the demon, and this demon has 8 hearts and 8 mouths, so the grass naturally grows in his stomach. One of the cultists began to stutter again. 8 hearts and 8 mouths? What nonsense. Brother Dean, are you really going to listen to their nonsense? Ian still didn't believe it. We have already solved the problem with 1 heart, so whatever they say must be true. Our hero shook his head. Well, okay, but Gong Zhen hasn't appeared for several days. Something serious might happen at Mr. Li's residence, so I'll have to keep an eye on her. If you have any problems, come to the mansion anytime you need me. In the meantime, I will take care of the mansion. Yang agreed. Ding Xiao slipped his foot on the brown sludge, but skillfully balanced and did not fall. And with all his might he split the ugly statue in half. The hearts of the demon were hidden in the most unusual places, in abandoned houses, in caves. But thanks to teamwork, each of them was destroyed. This is the last of the broken hearts. Shun summed up with a sigh, watching as brown slurry began to flow in their direction. Strange, very strange, Genji said, looking forward. What's happened? Our hero did not understand them. We can't tell you anything, it's just strange. The hostages answered him. Who cares? Let's cut it down first, Xu Chu objected, clearing the way with his sword. But when they got to the inside of the statue, only half of the heart was there. At this time, the second half of the heart was in the most unexpected place for them. Suddenly, our hero had a bad feeling. Something happened at Mr. Li's mansion. Ian and the others are still inside. We need to come to the rescue quickly. He barely had time to shout before disappearing into the evening twilight. When they ran to the gates of the mansion, a monstrous picture was revealed to their eyes. The devil's brown slurry consumed buildings, soaking the walls from floor to ceiling. With the help of the talisman, Feiyan decided to gather basic information about the enemy. Pharmacy of the evil Zen prison. The entire Li mansion is covered with it. This formation contains evil energy, but now Donghuan is filled with it. The girl summed up. A curse. So what should we do now? Xu Chu thought. Suddenly, our hero had a brilliant idea in his head. Calling the baby from the spiritual palace of contemplation, he ignited his spiritual energy and, stretching his hand forward, touched the slurry. Can he really absorb demonic energy? Xu Chu couldn't believe his eyes. Ding's spiritual phase is slightly different from ours, and it was Ding's ability to absorb demonic energy that saved us from the demonic master during the last test, Shun explained. However, if Soul Society finds out about this, we will have problems. This guy trusts us very much, and this secret should remain a secret for everyone, Feiyan reminded. Gradually, Xiao summoned more and more of his spiritual form. Xiao, straining himself, was able to clear a small part of the gate wall from the brown slurry. "It's time to end this," he said, and stepped forward full of confidence. The others followed him. While he was making his way through the obstacles, Yang cast a sealing talisman on the again rebelling son of Mr. Li. Hai and Zhou helped him by holding the dead man. "You will all be united," Dai shouted, trying to break the chains. Of course something went wrong, our hero thought as he ran up. "You are just in time. Come and help us." Seeing the guys, Ian commanded. Now the 7 defenders tried to calm the rebel, taking out the talismans and casting spells more and more. They shackled the hands and feet of the dead man, after which Yang ordered Xiao's detachment to launch an active attack, while he himself took out a dagger and his enchanted handbell, which, like the flower of Buddha, during a bloody sacrifice gave strength to its owner and drove out evil. Ian took advantage of this. As soon as a drop of his blood fell on the bell and flowed down the wall, Dai begged to be released, which of course, no one is going to do. "Brother Yang, we recently destroyed several demon hearts, but the last half is hidden in the Li mansion," our hero said casually. But Shu refuted his version of the location of the heart, since he personally cast a spell on the dead man, and no one touched the coffin after that. And this is only possible if Xiao has already brought the coffin with his heart inside. "No, Commander Lin personally gave it to me. Think about what happened before the spell was cast on the coffin," said our hero, having already found the answer. An unexpected situation occurred that day. Yang began to remember the events of the past, when he saw Li Zhen standing behind him, and before he had time to react in any way, the old man reached out to him and pierced him right through with his hand. Soon you too will be eaten," the old man drawled contentedly, looking at the body at his feet and the blood on his hand. Unexpecting such a turn of events, Hai and Zhou were distracted, and the dead man took advantage of the moment to free himself. "Brother Yang!" our hero rushed to him. "Leave the demon to us, and deal with the old man yourself!" Shun shouted, and each of the defenders grappled with the evil spirits in a deadly battle. "Who the hell are you? Why did you raise this demon to harm people?" Xiao tried to get to the bottom of the truth, wielding a sword. "I didn't summon the demon. I am the one who swallowed the people in Donghuan. What do you say? Serving the Soul Society pallbearers, will you give your life for the destroyed city of Luofeng?" Zhen laughed, dodging the attacks. "Shut up!" Our hero got angry, and in a fit of emotion, he hit the old man with his energy tail. But this did not cause any harm to the enemy. "With your useless friends, you cannot cope with me. I just have to hold you and wait until the time comes." Zhen continued to laugh. Suddenly he felt a sharp pain and bent over he began to spew out brown slurry. "Did you say something there?" our hero asked, looking at the old man. Mr. Li was horrified. He couldn't believe it. Meanwhile, Zun and Suchui contrived to grab the dead man. "Brother Dean, this stake that Commander Lin lent you is a real treasure." Fayan thanked him from a distance, throwing a nail at the dead man. She thought about it. This demon was very strange, and had been hiding under the noses of people in the corpse department for so long that someone must be secretly helping him. And he asked out loud that if he was detained by a demon, then by this means they would later free him. "Do you think we are all weaklings here?" Xiao said, pointing the sword at the old man. "It was so close, so close. But it's all over now," Zhou whispered without looking at the tip. Suddenly the young man felt something was wrong, and as soon as he had time to jump back, brown sludge sprayed out of the old man like a fountain, filling everything with yourself, every corner, every crack in the yard. "Am I hallucinating again?" Our hero tried to determine reality from fiction. "Brother, these are not hallucinations." Jun upset him. The guys still couldn't understand what was happening in the end. But then a huge shadow rose behind them. "The whole of Don Juan consists of me. Unfortunately, if I still had a heart, I could swallow the entire city at dawn and entertain you in my stomach." The shadow laughed. "So you are the culprit of all the evil in Donghuan?" Shun realized. "Yes, only you ruined my plans, so now you yourself will become my hearts." The shadow laughed. Turning around, the guys saw a huge, shapeless monster with several arms and several rows of teeth. "How dare this damn demon act so arrogantly in front of the corpse department? You've been doing this for a long time. Today is the day of reckoning," Shun shouted to him in response, along with Shuchu and Xiao, inflamed with spiritual energy. Their words acted on the demon like the squeaking of mice and irritated him madly. But he was alone, and there were 4 guys. Feiyan was the first to find her bearings, using the 5-symbol talisman, and chains of green, yellow, red, white, and black began to bind the monster. Thanks to this, the rest of the defenders were able to get closer to him and cause damage. "Dean, take advantage of the moment," Suchu reminded. Although he might not have said this, because our hero, with the help of his energy tail, tried to pierce the monster's body. Causing unimaginable pain, the demon stirred up in surprise and the defenders, having lost their support, fell. Miao Shun, Sun Shuchu. Xiao was worried for them, watching as they landed on the concrete tile, but Feiyan left the care of them, and he continued to climb up. "I will eat you all! I will tear you all to pieces!" the demon raged, showing the world his 4 tongues and dozens of teeth. No matter how brave our hero was, he was still a man, and feeling fear was normal for him. However, the instinct of self-preservation did not work, and when the monsters raged, he hid the young man inside himself from prying eyes. The girl and 2 guys were heartbroken when they realized that they had lost their colleague. Having opened his eyes, our hero at first did not understand where he found himself. The surrounding world was very similar to the inner palace of contemplation, but there was a completely black fog spreading there, and for some reason, the baby disappeared. Xiao suggested that perhaps this was another illusion, but then thin threads began to wrap around his wrist. The young man tore them apart with a jerk. Then the threads began to wrap around his legs, and gradually, a silhouette of himself appeared in front of him. Only in his eyes there was some kind of lifeless, crazy sparkle, something like an evil double. "I ate it." "You're probably thinking, who am I?" "I am you," he said. But then the calls of his comrades reached the ears of our hero, and wishing at all costs to save himself, save his sister and save the baby, Xiao screamed and began to climb up the demon's esophagus. A little more and Mr. Li flew out after him. From the roof of one of the houses, 2 Genji survivors watched what was happening. They were happy that Master Grandfather Jai had finally woken up, and that he had finally been served food. "How can this be?" the old man whined. Our hero slowly approached him, clicking his heels. Li was horrified. He did not believe that such a strange and strong, terrifying energy could emanate from a simple, living person. Suddenly his body changed. The veins began to pulsate at an unprecedented speed, driving blood throughout the body. His eyes bulged out of his orbit, and under the skin, giant worms seemed to be crawling. Watching his torment, Xiao only enjoyed his agony. The pain was unbearable. It seemed that something was growing inside him. A little more, and the man's body could not withstand the pressure and exploded under the crazy laughter of the young man. "This guy's spiritual phase scares me. Is he really that fierce?" For the umpteenth time seeing his colleague in this form, he did not believe Suchu. But then, before the eyes of the children, Mr. Li's body crumbled into dust, and a sprout of grass from the 8 spirits of the earth appeared from it. Finally, their mission was completed, and Hao was saved. "We managed to cope with this," Jun rejoiced, approaching Xiao. But our hero grabbed him by the clothes and threw him to the ground. "Now it's your turn," Dean sentenced, squeezing his throat with his hands. Feiyan and Zuchu ran up to them, trying to calm him down, at least until he gets off soon, but their attempts were in vain. Moreover, they barely dodged the sneaky energy tail. Now Xiao said the same thing as Mr. Li and his son, that he would eat everyone. But then Shun saw the amulet given to Bai Shi hanging on his side. He realized that Dean was acting now not because he had such a strange spiritual form, but because he was still in his illusion, and therefore was trying to defend himself. And reaching out, he jerked off the amulet. Well, it was the right decision. Our hero immediately let him go. The guys began to approach him with caution. "What happened after all?" our hero asked them, coughing up the dust that had formed a lump in his throat. Yang Shu could barely breathe from the wound he received. This is not surprising. Anyone else who would have been pierced through would have already given up the ghost. Unfortunately, Feng Hai and Lan Zhou were unlucky, and were now lying on the ground with a sheet thrown over them. Looking at their bodies, our hero reproached himself for not being able to understand the Li family's conspiracy earlier, and then they would have been able to avoid the tragedy. "Please forgive me for almost killing you." He asked Miao Shun for forgiveness. The elder just laughed. He knew that the young man did not want this, but advised him to use his power carefully in the future. However, there was someone else who would like to apologize. "Thank you for stopping me. It's all my fault." Mr. Li's spirit repented, looking at the floor. It turned out a few months ago, when he was suffering from an illness, he wrote an application for medical help, and the Genji came to tell him that he could live indefinitely if he became immortal. Li accepted their advice out of greed. When he turned into a demon, aging and illness disappeared, as he had hoped, but new problems appeared. He began to crave food from chickens, dogs, pigs to living creatures, and desires began to dominate in his mind. The cultists told him that turning his immediate family into a heart could suppress his desire. So he sent someone to kill his son and turn him into a heart so that he would become one with him. Later, Ding Xiao sent Dai's body back to Donghuan, and the guys already knew the next part of the story. Shun rolled his eyes. It was all the cultivists' fault again. Do you know what you need? Our hero continued to get to the bottom of the truth. But the old man pointed his finger at him, as if to say that what they needed was connected with him. On the outskirts of the city of Dunhuang, having built a secluded place for themselves, 4 Genji were hiding in a house. Like wild animals, they tore raw pieces of meat with their teeth and devoured them greedily. Unlucky, really unlucky. We were almost able to get the meat of the first master. Who is it that spoils our plans? They thought between times. Don't worry, trying the master's meat is not so easy. If it didn't work this time, let's wait another time. There will always be a chance. A man with warts, already familiar to us, encouraged them. But suddenly he became quiet. The others followed his gaze and froze in place. And whose meat do you want? Stepping into the sunlight, Ding Xiao stood in the doorway. Genji could not believe that the first master himself came to them, and luck was really on their side. And absolutely without thinking, one of them immediately attacked him, using a piece of someone's flesh skewered on a knife as a weapon. But our hero expected such a reaction and, upon returning, allowed the man to crash to the floor. After which, he took out and asked for a worm and a mud ball in front of them. When they saw Genji, they began to tear out their hair from the fact that they had lost one of their participants. And they began to encourage each other that in fact they still had real skills left, and they had a chance to get what they wanted. Therefore, having united in a wild dance, they merged into one whole. But Xiao just chuckled in response and advised them not to deceive themselves. Master Jai, be careful. Now you know what we are capable of. Master Jai is great. If we kill the Taoist master, we will all eat meat and we will all become immortal. Don't pay attention to his words, the Genji threatened. Looking at them, the young man remembered the words of Master Lin, where he said that these stillborns were trying to conceive their own spirit phase and listen to roadside charlatans who advised them to eat the flesh of the spirit. But how can an ordinary person come into contact with demonic energy, and as a result they all went crazy? Even though you are pathetic, you encouraged the Li family to harm countless people, and you must pay for it with your lives, Xiao reasoned, and taking out the sword that he inherited from Zhang Xuan, walked with a confident gait into the depths of the house. However, all the Genji's efforts were in vain. The young man stopped all their attempts to attack with one blow. Having finished with them, our hero finally breathed a sigh of relief. Dunhuang is now cleared, and the Genji gradually, one after another, were given up from the mortal wounds they received. A few days later, the doctor at the medical center looked at Ho again, shaking his head disappointingly. And just at that moment, our hero entered the chamber along with the rest of Bai Shi's defenders. They all handed over the ointment from the heart of the demon and the grass of the 8 spirits of the earth, which should be applied to the boy's body, and then he would be cured in less than 3 days. The effect of the medicine appeared immediately. Xiao took out a small bag, unfolded it, and showed Shi the fragments of the amulet. This time he was fine thanks to her, but he accidentally broke her jade pendant. Wow, the amulet is cracked. It seems that he encountered very strong demonic energy, and it is unknown whether this has anything to do with Ding Xiao directly. The girl thought, thoughtfully looking at the fragments. This jade pendant is called Full Moon. It will be restored at moonrise. Save it if you might need it again. Consider this a gift for our reunion, said the girl. Our hero did not expect such generosity and thanked her, hoping that she did not suspect anything. But their conversation was interrupted by a loud cough. The 3 of us helped too, Chu reminded, crossing his arms over his chest. Of course, this time thanks to you. Thank you. Xiao thanked them. However, all 4 of them owed their lives to Hao since the time of passing the exams. Okay. Lin must have been very worried after I was gone for so long. That's why I have to come back and report that everything is fine. I need to go home, so please take care of Hu. Our hero finally asked. But as soon as he walked a couple of steps, Bai Shi grabbed his hand. She just wanted to go to his house with him. Meanwhile, Lin's illness progressed in his absence. The second face on the back of the girl's head went berserk, and while Lin herself lay unconscious, the face, parasitic, created chaos in the house and actually drank the blood from a living chicken. When Xiao crossed the threshold of his yard, it seemed to him that the wind was raging there. What happened? The young man became worried, looking at the debris and various pieces of wood, and instantly ran into the house. There, without lifting the curtains or opening the window, his sister sat in the corner of the room. Seeing her brother, tears appeared in her eyes, and she threw herself into his arms, shuddering in sobs. "I don't know what happened. When I woke up, the whole house looked like this. I was so scared, brother," the girl said in a barely audible voice. Having examined the room, our hero saw all the chaos. But since there were no traces, it seemed that it was not a thief, but that they were looking for something deliberately, and suggested, horrified at the very thought, that perhaps this was what was on the back of Lin's head. Baisi immediately pulled out her magic talisman and reported that there was demonic energy everywhere in the house. Bone jackals often attack people here. I set up security talismans in advance, but I didn't expect that they would still break into the house. Luckily, Lin is fine, our hero suggested, stroking his sister's hair, thereby covering the back of her head with her palm. Is this really a simple attack from demons? Since he doesn't want to talk about it, it's better not to ask, thought Bai, and offered her help as spiritual water for Lin. Since she is scared, she will feel better if she drinks this water. "Thank you. I owe you again." "I accept the bottle," thanked the young man. "Your sister needs to recover, so today I won't bother you anymore," Bai finally said, heading towards the exit. Our hero felt like a scoundrel because she trusted him so much, but he had already lied to her several times. Perhaps he should find a way to confess this to her. But should he? The next day, Ding Xiao went to the corpse department's secret treasure pavilion in the morning. He wandered thoughtfully between the shelves. The incident in Donghuan allowed him to get to the second floor of the secret treasure pavilion, but the tea rubber had no effect on Lin. Now he needs to take on a few more tasks in the pipe department to increase his protector rank and get a higher level of medicine. But then Hao called out to him, "I'm incredibly glad to see you, but why aren't you at the medical center?" Our hero asked a question. "Brother Dean, you are here to complete a task. Let me go with you, even if it is just to carry the coffin." "Don't worry, look, I'm already fine, and I feel more energetic than before," the boy assured, and even demonstrated the strength of his muscles. "This task of delivering corpses is no joke. You almost lost your life during the test if something happened." His defender began to reason again, but Hao interrupted. "Brother Dean, I don't want to stay there for the rest of my life. I don't want to be a burden all the time." The teenager became capricious. He heard that Xiao, at his age, also very often volunteered to be an assistant without remuneration, and therefore tried to awaken these memories in him. "Okay, then we will go on a mission together to look after each other." Our hero agreed. They first went to the Zhou family's mansion. The deceased was honored by Zhou Gu. He has not yet been sent to the hall for storing corpses, and the coffin is still at home. "His spirit is a four-eared rabbit, so you don't have to be afraid," Xiao said after knocking on the gate. "Hey, I'm not that timid." Hao was indignant. "Hello, have you come to pick up the coffin?" asked a man who looked out through the gap between the doors, and having received an affirmative answer, he let them inside. It was clear from the residents of the mansion that they were really in mourning now. Everyone wore white clothes and covered their heads. The servants stuck all the talismans on the coffin according to the instructions, and now hoped that there would be no problems. "Let me ask, what happened to the deceased?" Xiao asked. "It's hard to say. Gu was my family's son-in-law, and because of my daughter's insecurities, he committed suicide in disgrace," the head of the family explained to him. "It turned out it was suicide. I hope this doesn't cause any trouble." Our hero hoped as he watched Hao lift the coffin onto his shoulders. Finally, having adjusted the straps, the boy was ready to set off. "Please wait," Mr. Zhou stopped them. "Do you have another talisman of peace? I would like to ask for a peace talisman to help my daughter sleep. As for the price, we can discuss it," he asked. Dean didn't refuse him. Soon the guys left the Zhou family mansion. "Brother, isn't it too rude of you to double the price of a talisman of peace?" Hao thought. "Head of Zhou, local tycoon, you can squeeze a lot of money out of him. So even if you add another 1,000 to the price, it will still be a good deal. Besides, he must have done something wrong if he so urgently asks me for a peace talisman. I'm afraid that Zhou Gu's cause of death is different, so let's quickly find a place to stay for the night." Xiao answered him. "Brother, you are too worried. This is just a four-eared rabbit, and there are two of us." Hu laughed into the silence of the night. However, he should not have had so much fun. Suddenly the boy stopped, hesitant, and swaying, screaming loudly, he fell to the ground. The coffin almost crushed him. "How are you okay?" our hero worried, taking the boy under the armpits and helping him get up. The coffin suddenly became so heavy. What's wrong with him? Hao was perplexed. Don't be afraid. It's just that a few talisman are out of order. The monster-suppressing talisman is still there. However, something is really wrong. Xiao answered. The light feather talisman can reduce the weight of the coffin and the burden on the bearer. But everything is strange. Why did they stop working? The young man began to unravel the ropes on the coffin. While watching him, Hao expressed concern that if they opened the coffin, the talismans would stop working. But Dean still decided to check, just in case. But instead of a whole body, what appeared to his gaze was a bloody pulp of bones, caked with blood and meat. The fact that the body was cut up was a bad surprise, and the young man had a bad feeling. I'll carry the coffin. Let's go back to Jiao village. Something could happen there. Dean hastily slammed the lid. But this surprise turned out to be a real setup. Jiang Tangsing was waiting for his ward in his mansion. Mr. Commander, don't worry. I did everything to make sure Ding Xiao was taken care of. The minister of the spiritual department who approached reported. Tangsing smiled ominously, pleased with his revenge. Jiao village was under the jurisprudence of the Southern Lynch and Corpse Department, and he was extremely curious if they could appeal to the spiritual department. Meanwhile, our hero and his assistant hurried to the village. Brother, why are you suddenly so nervous? Hao didn't understand. We don't carry bodies. We carry their souls. Unlike ordinary corpses, those cut up are more restless. Each piece of the body can be filled with a soul. The chopped body in the coffin is suppressed by the talisman. But if there are remains of it in Jiao village, then we may be in big trouble. Xiao explained. Suddenly turning a corner on the road, the guys braked sharply. A demon stood before them. He had several faces, his carcass towered above the trees, and the hands from his mouth were about to swallow the unfortunate peasant. Having lowered the coffin to the ground, our hero instructed Hao to watch him and protect himself, and he rushed forward. And the demon's hands brought the man closer and closer to his mouth. But Xiao managed to throw the soul talisman at him first, which was supposed to help return the body to the underworld and the soul to heaven and earth. With a heart-rending scream, the monster released the peasant, and he himself began to convulse. Having picked up a man for the summer, our hero asked what actually happened and where did the monster come from. It's all Zhou Gu. The young lady Jiao fell in love, and Zhou Gu went to catch her lover, but the lady and her lover dealt with him, cutting him into pieces. Now he attacks every living creature he sees. Please help us, sir, the man prayed on his knees. Xiao looked at the monster thoughtfully. To protect his daughter, Mr. Zhao hid the true cause of his son-in-law's death. They bought a peace talisman to avoid punishment, but in the end, they were unable to save their lives. But the demon had few victims. He wanted more and more of them. I know that there have been many grievances in your life, but now that your revenge has been accomplished, there is nothing left for you in this world. So why do you still want to hurt people? Our hero thought out loud, taking out his sword. But here he barely managed to escape from the waving hands of the demon. The young man felt very sorry for him, and he wanted to help him get rid of the evil in his body as soon as possible with the help of a liberating talisman. But while he was not yet activated, he struck the monster over and over again. The demon extended his hands to him, inviting him to merge with him. Xiao, of course, rejected his offer with the Cell Pearl, which, like a small atomic bomb, destroyed the monster, crushing it into small pieces. Fortunately, after our hero became a soul master, the phase energy in his body became larger. Even the Keelan Pearl was 50% larger than before. Brother, you are amazing. You destroyed it so quickly. Hao, running up, admired. However, this was not the end. Having picked up the boy, Xiao barely managed to dodge a huge leg moving towards them. Jumping to the side, the guys watched as something rose from the bloody slurry. It had 2 pairs of paws, a bone shell, and a huge scorpion tail. This is the first time our hero has encountered such a demon, let alone Hao. What? Not only did he not die, but his strength also increased. How is this possible? Xiao was stunned by what he saw. While he was thinking, the demon began to advance. The young man barely had time to return. Even though the monster's body was transformed, it should be more fragile than that of ordinary demons, and he wanted to take advantage of this. However, someone is definitely behind this change. Your body will also belong to me, the bone monster laughed, and he approached the young man so close that he did not have time to react before he was pierced by a needle-sharp paw. Overcoming the pain, Xiao raised his sword, hoping that he would succeed, and gathering all his strength, he cut off his paw. He had barely landed on the ground when Hao ran up to him. I'm fine. Watch the coffin and don't come closer, our hero shouted at him. Of course, he could use his celestial phase, but after recent events, he shouldn't have used it until he found out what was happening to him, where the hallucinations and this unimaginable anger came from. Now he has little strength left, so he must think through his every step and neutralize the monster as quickly as possible. And the talisman of the sword and the shadow should have helped him in this. Spinning the pieces of paper in his hand, he threw them towards the demon. But the attempt was in vain because the talismans could not even inflict small damage on the enemy, and he openly mocked such an unsuccessful attack. After which he began to catch our hero, small as a fry, not forgetting to hit the ground with his tail from time to time, causing a small earthquake. Dean, as if willingly, gets closer to him, but his actions were noticeably slowed down by the spikes on the monster's body. Jumping up, Xiao concentrated, redirecting all his strength to the tip of the sword blade and cut the demon's chest. But here's the problem. In the chest, closely intertwined, the blood vessels drew strength from the evil talisman Ling Shu. Having seen this thing, our hero could say with 95% confidence that the spiritual department had tried again. But then a huge palm appeared in front of him from the enemy's side. This evil talisman blocked the young man's path to destroy himself. How tensed, shouting at the top of his lungs for Dean to watch out as he was about to be grabbed by a palm. Fortunately, Xiao managed to use the bronze armor talisman and build something like a protective ball around himself. But under the pressure of the demon, he gradually began to crack, like a glass ball. A little more and the monster threw him into the ground, pressing him down with his hand. Our hero could not even move from the pain. His legs were numb, and the wound in his chest did not allow him to breathe normally. The monster canopied over him, just like Mrs. Yun's spider a couple of weeks ago, with the only difference that now the young man was told that merging into one body was actually not such a bad option. When Xiao's body began to be pierced by thorns, the young man froze in silent screams, already foreseeing his death. However, unlike him, Hao did not give up. The monster felt small stones falling into him in a cluster. "Let go of your brother!" the boy shouted, hefting the coffin onto his shoulders. "Dean, find a way to escape! I'll stop him!" he shouted, tightly holding several speed talismans in his hand. Has he gone crazy? Our hero was surprised at the teenager's despair, and the enraged monster rushed in pursuit of the fleeing Hao. "You go back to the underworld. This place is not for you," the boy shouted to him. "Goat, I couldn't bring you back to life for so long, but apparently I'll have to resort to extreme measures," thought Xiao. And straining all the muscles of his body, he decided to use his spiritual power. But instead, for some reason, he was transported to the Palace of Contemplation. Now, in addition to the golden talismans, his baby was shackled with golden chains. Dean became alarmed. What was going on in the end? "Master, help me please," the baby begged. His voice was barely audible. The young man immediately went to him, and as if a butterfly fell into the web of a spider, so he also fell into a magical web that constrained his movements. "It's out of control, and if you get close enough, you'll go crazy," said a voice coming out of nowhere. Raising his head, the young man saw a large golden talisman hovering right above him. "You're probably wondering who I am? The will generated in the 81 golden talismans in your spiritual body," he explained. "What happens? Are you stopping me from getting my phase?" our hero asked him without even being surprised. But the golden talisman objected to him that he was not hindering, but rather saving him, since Dean was in a state of chaos. The hallucinations he had in Donghuan were caused by his own phase, that is, the baby. But if Xiao uses the baby again, then the golden talisman will not be able to suppress the baby, and then Ding will lose his soul and mind, and will be doomed for life. From the realization of this bitter truth, our hero tightly clenched his hands into fists. "I understand what you are talking about, and I also know that using the phase will have unpredictable consequences. But I can't. I can't let Hao and the villagers die." Despite the enormous risk, Dean protested. "Well, I can help you in this critical situation." After a pause, the golden talisman said. "Really? Really?" asked the young man. "True, true. However, this will require considerable effort." The golden talisman provided the choice. Meanwhile, Hu had already begun to lose his strength, and he was barely dragging the coffin behind him while running away from the demon. Finally, when the effect of the speed talismans finally wore off, he lowered the coffin to the ground, covering it with himself. "I'm not strong at all. I'm such a loser. I can't protect anyone," he regretted. And when Hao was about to accept his death, our hero came to his rescue. Shielding the boy with himself, he stood between him and the outstretched hand of the monster wanting to grab his victim. "If you want to take away an entire ability from me, let's see if you're strong enough to stop the demon," thought Xiao. And on the fly, in the blink of an eye, in the air, He came up with a talisman for cursing and taming demons. At first, under his influence, the monster's bones began to break under the pressure of the chains, and he fell to the ground, writhing in pain. And then, finally falling under the influence of the demon's curse, he self-destructed. Making talismans in the air? Brother Dean, when did you master such a technique? Hao was amazed at what he saw. Our hero's answer was short. Just now. But even though he used the power of the golden talisman, the baby seemed to have now fallen into a deep sleep for a long time in the palace of contemplation. In fact, the conversation between Ding Xiao and the golden talisman was much longer. Since the spiritual fruit had already lost control many times, it constantly undermined the power of the talisman restraining it. Based on this, the young man needs to use taming all the time to imprint the spiritual form, and before he leaves the spiritual palace of contemplation, he should master this spell. For the past 8 years, every time I started to develop my celestial phase, you stopped me. And now that I'm almost there, you're here talking nonsense? You are obsessed with stopping me from releasing my spirit form. Our hero did not agree with him. But how long will you be possessed? Just think about what happened in Donghuan. If you use your celestial phase again, you'll end up killing everyone you saved. The golden talisman tried to reason with him. After his words, the young man stopped trying to free himself, remembering who could have become his victim. He really didn't know what would happen, and how many people would suffer if he lost control of himself. You think correctly. Everything is exactly like that. Ding Xiao, give up this false and evil spirit. Accept my strength, suggested the talisman. The young man chuckled. Refuse the false and evil? The kid has never deceived me, and you insult him like that. I have never done anything bad for others. So how can I be evil? You talk about righteousness. Why didn't you show up when I was in danger so many times? He was indignant, and although the web in which he found himself grabbed his body tighter and tighter, he began to resist more and more. And now that I can't rely on the baby, are you taking advantage of the situation to force me to seal it? Here you are, the real hypocrite. Only I can tell whether my spirit is good or evil. Xiao defended his point of view, starting to shout, and at some point without noticing it he broke the bonds, and reaching forward he approached and grabbed the talisman. He was disgusted by the idea of abandoning the baby, because he was condemned to death. It was impossible to just leave the talisman, and the young man decided to take its power for himself, thus releasing your spiritual form. We already know what happened next. Xiao returned to the real world and saved Hao. The night passed. Morning came. During the day our hero, at the call of Lin Hong, came to the corpse department for a personal meeting. This is a great achievement. Thanks to you, the villagers were saved. I'm very glad that you reached rank 2. The commander was happy for his subordinate. This is what I had to do. However, the spiritual department did not hesitate to bring in innocent people to ambush me and ruin my mission. Will they be punished? Our hero inquired, letting the praise fall on deaf ears. Unfortunately, the spiritual department is so powerful that it does not admit it because of one talisman. They even provoked the city department to put our corpse department to the test. Hun could hardly find a place for himself out of anger. She suggested that perhaps the events of last night were another conspiracy by the spiritual department against them. Yes, but we are weak, so we can only take the bull by the horns. My destiny is always to reward merit. From now on, you will be a 7th level protector. Keep up the good work. I hope you live up to our cadaver department's expectations during your trial. Commander Lin hoped, handing the young man a nameplate. Xiao, of course, thanked for such an honor, but still, it's wrong when for one task they are promoted by as many as 2 ranks. One herb in the treasury has the effect of dispelling evil spirits and nourishing the body. 7th rank guards are entitled to 1 such herb. It will be useful to you. The head of the corpse department answered indirectly to our hero's question, while trying not to look him in the eyes. Commander Lin already knows about Lin's condition? Did something really happen to her? Our hero became worried, and hastily saying goodbye, he hurried home. By coincidence, they came out to meet each other. Lin, are you feeling well? The young man asked first, squeezing his sister in his arms. Why are you so worried about me? I'm fine. While you were away, Sister Bai came to see me and brought cakes. I even left some for you. My sister became capricious. Dean came closer and sampled one of the pastries from Lin's outstretched basket. Mufon grass, linking fruit. There are a lot of herbs here that drive away evil spirits. It seems that my old friend also noticed something strange about Lin. The young man came to this conclusion, tasting the sweetness. I'll finish it later, And I was also promoted to rank 7, and I was able to get a new medicine. Throwing a small box in his hand, Xiao told the good news as he and his sister headed inside the house. But then something happened that had not happened before. Medicine? I don't want him. The face on the back of Lin's head whispered, barely audible only with her lips. Our hero stood rooted to the spot. Has his sister's illness really progressed in his absence? And then he began to part the strands of the girl's hair. Brother, what are you doing? Lin did not understand his actions, but from the last time, the face on the back of the head remained the same as before. Did I really imagine it? Dean thought. It's okay. Let's go into the house. I'll prepare everything for now. Trying not to show his anxiety, he said out loud, and grabbing his sister by the hand, began to entertain her with his chatter. The day has passed, evening has come before going to bed. Xiao improves as always, after which he took out the golden talisman from the spiritual palace of contemplation. Holding the talisman was no longer so reliable, and little by little it began to lose its power. However, the young man had already learned to create various talismans in the air, and now it is not a problem for him to subjugate a demon of the 4th rank. A loud knock on the gate interrupted his thoughts. How? It's late. What happened? Seeing the out-of-breath boy, our hero became excited. Someone from the spiritual department came to us. It looks like we can't avoid trouble. Let's go quickly, the boy called him. After a few minutes of running, they found themselves in the main square of the corpse department. A lot of people had already gathered around, filling the streets with noise. In the middle of the square lay several coffins. Inside one of them, it seemed that something was about to get out. Is this really the same test that Commander Lin spoke about? What is all this fuss? I make my way to the center, our hero thought. Suddenly he met Feiyan, Shun, and Suchu. What's happening? He asked them. Such a hassle. In recent years, evil spirits have become more and more numerous, and the Ministry of Souls accuses our corpse department of low efficiency. That's why they brought several coffins to check us on the spot. Shuchu began to explain. As a result, something went wrong from the very beginning and the spirit became furious. Feiyan continued. Not far from them, a group of guys from the spiritual department openly mocked the corpse, saying that they were just dreamers, that they couldn't do anything and didn't do anything. Zhang Tianxin was also doing this when Ling Hong barely approached him. Your department adheres to the concept of calming souls and suppressing evil spirits, but you cannot cope now. So why not immediately lure evil spirits to kill? I think there is no reason for you to exist anymore. Sooner or later, the city department will close you down. He laughed openly in his face. Lin Hong was just about to answer him when the lid of one of the coffins flew to the side with force, and a demon crawled out of him, spreading foul odors. And looking around, he rushed at the defender of the corpse department standing next to him, trying to swallow him. Well, without us they are nothing, so go ahead, go save their lives, Mr. Jiao commanded his guys. But before they had time to run up to the demon, he instantly died down. But he immediately began to squirm, trying to get out of the chains that bound him. Two guys from the spiritual department stopped indecisively, not understanding what was happening. Cast a spell in the air? Is it really him? Lin Hong began to guess, but such a turn did not fit into Tianxing's plans, since he knew that more than one disciple and protector of the people present in the square had not yet received his sight, and these were the abilities of an unusual person. But then, in front of the crowd, the demon managed to free himself, but he was immediately attacked by a new talisman, even stronger than before. The defenders of the spiritual department began to simultaneously admire and be indignant. They had never seen talismans of such a high level that could create such strong spiritual chains. They really wanted to defeat the corpse department. But who could do such a thing and interfere in their affairs? My job is to restore souls and you don't need to tell me what to do, our hero said, speaking in front of the crowd. Ding Xiao did this? I remember he recently became a guard, and he's already so powerful. When did he master such a powerful talisman technique? The defenders of the corpse department whispered among themselves. Not paying attention to the exclamations of admiration, our hero began to climb up the stairs. So it's you. I didn't know you could create talismans in the air. I am impressed. Tianxing did not skimp on words of praise. The spiritual department was angry that someone from the corpse department could master such an art, and did not understand how such a simple person as Ding Xiao could master such a high-level technique. Even with your talent, that's all you have. So in any case, the corpse department is doomed anyway. The head of the spiritual department gloated. Meanwhile, Our hero approached Lin Hong and asked his permission to take the next test. The commander, hoping for his victory with all his heart, entrusted him with this task. Since Ding Xiao has mastered the technique of creating talismans and can now calm the spirits with ease, why doesn't he take care of the remaining 2 coffins to demonstrate the power of the corpse department? Suggested Tianxing. This is not fair. You changed the rules at the last minute. Commander Lin objected to him. Do you have any reason to worry? It would be difficult for one person to handle 2 coffins, but this guy has already mastered a strong technique, right? Are you saying that becoming a defender is easy these days? The rest of the guys from the spiritual department came to the defense of their head. Well, Zhang Tianxing fulfilled his promise. He came up with a worthy revenge on the upstart who forced him to apologize to everyone. Now he wanted to see if the young man could cope with what he had prepared for him. If the corpse department is closed, I will never be able to enter the secret treasure pavilion to cure my sister again. So I must win. Our hero motivated himself while preparing for the competition. I agree, but I have one condition. If I can calm the souls, the spiritual department will not be able to set foot in the corpse department for 3 months, he suggested. Tianxing agreed to his terms, but as soon as our hero headed towards the other 2 coffins, a hurried voice was heard from the crowd. Wait, how can you calm souls without special masters? We should take part too, Miao Xun said. Fei Yan and Shu Chu followed him. We can participate in the test together. I want to help too. Hao hurried after them all. This is a spiritual department trap. It can be dangerous. Xiao tried to reason with them. Even if it's a trap, we can't let you jump into it alone, can we? Shu Chu objected to him. How good it is when there are faithful helpers. Our hero smiled in his heart, and he asked Master Zhang if he agreed to help Ding, but Tianxing didn't care. Xiao, the future of the cadaver department is in your hands. You must succeed. With hope in his eyes, Lin Hong took the observation position. And so the competition began. Feiyan, Jun, Shu Chu took defensive positions, stood in fighting stances, and took out protective amulets. Hao and Xiao stood behind them, still preparing. Brother Ding, we started calming souls. Why are you preparing to suppress demons? The boy asked, pointing his finger at the golden talisman in the elder's hand. The souls of these corpses have probably been changed. It is not Zhang Tianxin's style not to set up a trap. Also, take this speed talisman and hide in case of emergency. Our hero answered him. The teenager took the talisman, wondering why he always felt so behind. By the aura around the coffins, Su Chu determined that those 2 people died in a grudge. And by the way, such corpses are not easy to find. What did you want? The spiritual department has made a lot of efforts to destroy us. Feiyan answered him. And so the protective talismans placed on one of the coffins burned out, and I no longer feel any obstacles. The demon jumped into the square. It had a humanoid body covered with fur and spikes on its back. The watching crowd was horrified as the steel hedgehog demon appeared before them. They didn't think that the spiritual department was so decisively against them. So, you 2 hold the second coffin and I will deal with it, our hero commanded. The demon, sensing a threat, turned to him and shot iron needles from his tail. But the young man destroyed them on the fly. However, when he approached the demon, the monster instantly dodged his sword strike. Now he targeted the unsuspecting Feiyan and Jun as victims. But Xiao did not take his eyes off him, and therefore he managed to protect his comrades by causing a protective barrier between the monster and them. Thank you, brother. We were on the verge of death, but you saved us, Shun rejoiced. And our hero wasn't even sure that he would make it in time. Fortunately, everything worked out fine. He used this technique again. 3 bronze armor talismans out of thin air. Not even a soul general can do that. The workers of the corpse department admired the former undertaker, but now it was Su Chu's turn to attack. And having summoned his spiritual form, the interval fox decided to attack the demon. However, the monster easily repelled the attack. Now Su Chu decided not to use his spiritual form against the hedgehog alone anymore. This monster is clearly not level 3. I wonder what kind of amplifier the spiritual department gave him, Dean thought. And he created 4 sealing talismans in the air at once. Against such power, even the steel hedgehog did not have such an amount of strength to resist. Have we really dealt with him? Shun did not believe half of the victory. It's not that simple. Don't let your guard down, Xiao advised him, and he turned out to be right. The rising spirit from the second coffin was also impatient to get free. Another moment and the lid of the coffin opened under pressure, and a woman's hand appeared from it, around which blue roses were wrapped. It comes out! It comes out! Seeing his soulmate, the steel hedgehog rejoiced, and straining himself, he broke the golden chains. I didn't think that the chain spiritual system would not be able to hold this unfortunate hedgehog. Shun shared his assumptions, helping our hero get to his feet, who advised him to be careful, since most likely the second corpse would also turn out to be a demon. Meanwhile, the steel hedgehog was heading towards them. Looking at him, Dean was once again surprised by his speed, and the demon's hands were still reaching out to the guys. But then Miao Shun was inflamed with his spirit, and his spiritual phase in the form of a brown bear fought with a demon. Grabbing his hand, Shun threw him from side to side with his bare hands, but at some point the man realized that he could not take a single step. Looking down, he saw dozens of sprouts growing out of the ground and wrapping around his legs. The reason for their appearance was the restless spirit from coffin number 2. She was a dead young girl who was the thorny lord of blue roses and a 4th-level master. During her life, she was incredibly beautiful, but now her cadaverous pallor made her more bloodthirsty. Meanwhile, the tenacious vines, writhing more and more, fettered Jun. And while he was trying to tear the plants, the steel hedgehog took advantage of the moment and rushed at him. Miao tried to use the spiritual form, but everything was inconsolable. And then once again our hero came to his rescue, and he helped out his comrade with the help of a talisman. At the same time, Feiyan did not waste any time and took out a multi-rank calming talisman. Shuchu did not lag behind them all. While the steel hedgehog was trying to free himself from Feiyan's chains, Sun advanced on him with his sword outstretched, and approaching him close to the hilt, he stuck a cold weapon into the chest area. While Suchu was busy calming the steel hedgehog, the demon girl decided to take advantage of the moment and get the man's soul. However, our hero sensed danger in time and cut off the girl's outstretched hand to Suchu. "You see, this place is not for you, so rest in peace," he said, and with a swing he cut the girl in half. However, what was his surprise when, instead of flesh, his sword cut through the rose bush. Suddenly he felt someone's cold hand on his cheek. "Hubby, is it really you?" the demon girl said in an insinuating voice, hugging the young man from head to toe. And succumbing to her charms, Xiao was transported into her memories. Most likely during the life of this restless soul, she was betrayed by the person closest to her, her lover. Xiao and the girl walked through the rose garden. Having picked a flower, Dean stuck it in the girl's hair, while affectionately calling her little wife. "Hubby, I love you more than life itself," the girl swore, caressing his outstretched hand. However, in reality, everything was much different. The demon hugged our hero, and he fell under her illusion, and did not feel how vines of roses encircled him from all sides. The defenders of the corpse department became worried about Xiao, while the guys from the spiritual made fun of the participants in the performance. Miao Shun and Sun Suchu were also suffocating, and Feiyan lay unconscious on the concrete tiles. Their agony had a comforting effect on Zhang Tianxing, like a balm to the soul. "Oh my god. This is not good, Master Lin. They will be killed if we don't do anything." Does Master Lin really think that the reputation of the corpse department is more important than the lives of his students? He turned to the head of the corpse department. Tansing hoped that Mr. Lin still valued the lives of his guys, and therefore would refuse the test, because of which they would lose and be abolished. However, everything took a completely different turn of events. "Master Zhang, isn't it too early to celebrate? The Ding Xiao I know and whose talent I am proud of won't give up so easily." Commander Lin objected. "Well, we'll have to wait until they die," agreed to continue the competition Tianxing, but he immediately regretted his words. Suddenly, a radiant light spread behind him and he turned towards it. "No, this can't be." The head of the spiritual department did not want to believe what was happening when he saw both demons being consumed by flames. In fact, our hero realized the power of the demon girl and deliberately succumbed to her spell, while controlling himself, thereby weakening her vigilance and using a golden talisman. "What is this? I've never seen anything like this before." Realizing that all the troubles and work done had gone down the drain, Mr. Zhang did not want to give up, while Mr. Lin crossed his arms over his chest and was silently proud of his guys. "Well, now it's our turn to fight back," Xiao said, helping the rest of his comrades up. Each of them was rubbing the bruised area, but they were strong and confident that thanks to their teamwork, they would cope with this test.